Looks like a nice day for a walk in Gävle, Sweden, and the site of this year's Ford World Curling Championships on TSN. They've become familiar faces to us all. It is one of the most experienced women's fields we've seen in a while at the Ford Worlds. Coming up, the women's semifinal from Gävle. Colleen Jones, 6 times a Canadian champion. But when she gets to the Worlds, well, something happens there. She's only been able to conquer the world's best once. The Gävle has been host to the Ford Worlds this week, and today features the women's semifinal, Switzerland against Canada. And hello, Canada, and welcome to our coverage of this women's semifinal on this Friday morning. Linda Moore alongside here in our curling control. But let's say good morning to Ray Turnbull, who joins us from Gävle.
Gävle is a beautiful little coastline city about 200 kilometers north of Stockholm, with 90,000 people. And this week, it is the center of the curling world. And Colleen Jones has got herself into that semifinal, and that's really what counts at the World Championships, because 4 teams qualify. And Victor, I've looked hard and long for Lundjager, but this is Sweden, not Switzerland. But I haven't forgot you, pal. I'm bringing home 57 different types of pickled herring.
And I'm already looking forward to it. Nice pickled herring sandwich, be nice. Here's how they wound up. Norway, Canada, Switzerland were through to the playoffs. They needed 2 tiebreakers, and it was Scotland over Sweden yesterday, and then this morning, the U.S. and Patty Lank was a winner over Scotland and the former champion, Jackie Lockhart. So Norway and the U.S. will play in the other semi later today. As we look at Colleen Jones.
It was a great record this year at 6-3. She has been terrific against Switzerland, including Ebnöther in '99, and again this year in round-robin play, won both those games, and of course did win the Worlds in 2001. This year, though, the story was the slow start, losing 2 of the first 3 games, got it back on track. The key to me is Kim Kelly. She's got to regain her consistency we've seen so many times in previous events.
Well, the key at the Worlds is just getting to the playoffs, really, because, you know, so long as you get there, that's all that matters. It's a little different in Canada, where the page playoff system means so much if you finish 1 or 2. So we struggled early in the week. We lost to Denmark and the United States, mostly because it's such a long layoff between the Scot and the Worlds. We sort of forgot how to turn up the volume when it comes to competing. So it took us a while to get on track, but then I thought once we got on track, we were right there.
Linda, as for Lucia Ebnöther out of Bern, Switzerland, she has had the habit of finishing second in a number of championships.
It's one of those, she can't win the big one. Look at that in the Worlds against Kelly Law in 2000, the Olympics and the Europeans, 3 times runner-up. But she does travel to Canada. She does put in the time. She works hard. To me, it's the deuce, getting the big score with the hammer. That's what she has to do.
So Canada will face Switzerland. It is the women's semifinal of the Ford Worlds, and it comes to you from Gävle, Sweden.
The 2004 Ford World Curling Championships from Sweden are brought to you by Karcher. You'll look for things to clean. By Nokia, official wireless phone of the Season of Champions. And by Ford, built for life in Canada.
The Canadian team making their way out to the ice, the Gävle for their semi against Switzerland. It's time now to read the ice in Gävle, brought to you by Ford, built for life in Canada. And here's Ray.
Well, as we see often in Europe, the ice is very straight around that center guard. You're talking about 2, 2.5. And around the corner guard going from the inside out, once again about 2 to 2.5. You cannot get up on the 12-foot at all. Around the corner guard from the outside in, a little bit more movement, almost like the ice is dished a little, about 3 feet. If you have an inside-out release at all, you're in trouble. They run so straight. There's a little bit of frost line on the outside. The slide path does flatten out a little bit in the late ends, and be careful to put too much emphasis on the watch. You judge it by the eye.
Colleen Jones and her team out of the Mayflower Curling Club in Halifax. And Linda, she admits that it was such a long layoff between the championship of the Scott and her win over Quebec and getting to play at the Worlds. Maybe that's the reason why the slow start.
Well, you have to look at it, Vic. This is almost a month later than we often see a World Championship, a month later than it will be next year. So I can understand it's really tough to keep preparing this late into April.
Canada will play the Yellowstones. They will have the hammer. It'll be the Swiss who play the Redstones. And to get us going, the Swiss lead is Nadia Roethlisberger, as we say hello again to Ray Turnbull.
Victor, well, it's been one of those weeks for Colleen. I've really been kind of proud of the way she's handled the situation here. They did get off to a slow start, but she seems very confident. I talked to her yesterday for quite a while, and I really think they're ready for this game. I think that she said it, Linda, a little while ago, but I got some unfinished business, and I think she's right, and I think she'll do it this year.
Now, that first stone, Linda slips to the back 12. We've been here enough to know that she could do something other than play the hit on it with Nancy Delahunt. What's this suggest to you? Is this typically Colleen, or is this the ice speaking now?
I think it's a little bit of both, Vic. It's early in the game, and we have to remember this is a semifinal. There's a great deal of pressure on this sudden death semifinal at the world level. And we have to remember, with the ice being straighter, as Ray has talked about, positioning of guards is really tough, and getting around the center guard is even tougher. So you have to be careful when you make your move, and I can understand not going too early. Now, the one thing about Switzerland that I will comment on that they have to be a little bit careful with, they tend to throw with a big backswing, a lot of them, and sometimes they struggle with the feel for draw weight. So Switzerland, are going to have to, at some point, have a chance to play some draws and get that feel. In particular, if Colleen starts to set up some stones, Lucia herself is going to have to get that feel early in this game.
Make mention as well that we're playing under the world rules. So we will play the 73 minutes with 2 one-minute timeouts. Ray, what's the week been like in Gävle? I can see that there isn't a great crowd. I mean, we hear the Swiss bells and we hear the Canadians, but what has the attendance been like?
No, it hasn't been very good at all, Vic. It's, you know, it's just the game still is not drawing in this part of the world, as we've just seen it come out of Canada and Western Canada in particular, and where the numbers have been huge and it's been electrifying. But it hasn't been here. Though people that have been here have been boisterous. You do hear the bells, as you mentioned, and the Canadian chants. All their families are here. All the kids are here parading around. So it's been neat. But yeah, I talked to Mark Dacey about that as well. It really is hard to kind of adjust. And Linda's already alluded to the fact that this was a long layoff for Colleen. So I think that inconsistency in the early part of the week was certainly, you know, that was one of the reasons why it's a little slow starting. But it's a little different atmosphere for sure. You just have to adjust to it. Linda, you've been there. You know what it's like.
I did play in the World Championships in Sweden, and it was a smaller community in the southern part of Sweden, and that was something you really had to maintain your focus on the sheet of ice in the game, because you did not get that excitement we see at the Scott and the Brier in Canada, where the fans add to the atmosphere. You have to really focus on your game and not look around at all, because it's, generally speaking, pretty empty over there.
Tanya Fry throws the second stone for the Swiss champions out of the Bern Curling Club in Bern, Switzerland. There is just the one curling club in Gävle, and it's known as the Granite. Not like the Granite in Winnipeg, I'm sure. In fact, until 1979, there were 4 sheets, and they were all outside, Ray, and then they did a renovation, and now it's one of the better clubs in the entire country.
Yeah, I got a chance to go there, Victor. It is a nice club, but you're right. It's not the mother club like the Granite at home, of course, with 9 sheets of ice and that atmosphere, which is an old club. But there's lots of enthusiasm around here with the curlers. It's just that the spectators aren't you know, they're just, the game hasn't spread to the guy on the street yet. But it's a beautiful little city. We've been to a number of beautiful little restaurants, Victor.
Yeah, I'm sure you have.
They are out of red wine over here now,
Just
though.
remember, we're here and you're there, okay? All right, be nice to us. Carmen Kung. Linda, I think I said to you, and we've seen earlier in the season, we were televising some of the events off the women's tour. The traveling means a lot, and we're seeing more and more of it, especially since countries are awarding Olympic money, funding to their teams. So, and the Swiss have probably been at the forefront of that. We see a number of Swiss teams traveling on that Olympic funding, and Ebnöther is one of those teams.
Really, I think they're one of the best in Switzerland on the women's side to travel and compete. They come to Canada frequently. They came to the fall Cashville circuit this past season, and it does make a huge difference. The other benefit of Switzerland, Vic, you've mentioned in Sweden there aren't a lot of curling clubs. Switzerland has a lot of very good curling clubs. Some Canadians going in to make the ice. I'm not saying that's the only people that can make good ice, but they do have the experience and can build some curl into the ice so that when Lucia travels, she sees a lot of different conditions and learns from that as well as at home. And I think this is one team that's really developed and advanced a lot. The one difficulty, Vic, is Switzerland is now declaring their national champions a year before. Lucia, for example, already knows she's not going to the Worlds next year, and that is one difficulty with that system. Whatever happens here and whatever advancements they make in their own game, they're not able to do much about it because they haven't made it for next year.
Oh, so a late movement here, Ray. It looks like she's going to try and play a corner freeze-down stone just outside.
Yeah, it's just outside the back of the 12-foot, so she'll try and freeze down to it. It's an opportunity to try and get your deuce by not, you know, really generating a lot of offense by using the free guard zone area. So the rock is there. She'll freeze down to it. And I would be surprised if Colleen went a long time into this game. I think Linda made a good point about the fact that, you know, the ice is straighter and the long layoff, and she may be going to wait a little bit. But I would be surprised because Linda, she has played fairly aggressively, especially in the latter part of the week.
Now, is that an indication, Ray, of just how straight the ice is there?
Yeah, I mean, it is, Victor, really, it's almost impossible to get fully around something. If you get a rock 3/4 around a guard, let's say a guard 6, 7 feet in front of the rings, if you get it 3/4 around it, you're really doing something. And as I mentioned earlier, you cannot draw, as you saw on that one, Victor, you just can't draw to that 12-foot. It won't go up there, Linda.
That does make it difficult to set up the deuce, and that's one thing that I was mentioning for Switzerland. They have not done as well as Canada during round-robin play. They haven't been able to set up the score with the hammer as much, and that will be one difficulty in this game. You'll have to bring the corners closer to the center line if you want to get any barry at all.
Lucia Ebnöther,
No question.
the 33-year-old skip of this championship team from Bern, makes the hit and will sit center line, back 12. It is Canada playing the Yellowstones that has the hammer.
Ray, one of the things we saw as far as the numbers coming back, the statistics, is that all of these players, in particular some of these women that we're seeing on this sheet of ice, struggled a lot with draw weight. We saw the time is about 14 seconds hog to hog, maybe a little bit less than that. What do you think has been the key problem for the players with that draw weight?
Well, one of the things, Linda, for sure, in the latter part of the game, I sat and talked to Neil Harrison, who was here coaching the Scottish men, and one of the things that we've noticed for sure in the latter part, that's why I mentioned don't be careful with the watch. It is flattening out a little bit in the center area, so they've struggled with that, and then you move out to the edge of the 12-foot or the middle of the 12-foot, and it runs fairly clean again. Now, we see that a lot even at home, but the other thing too is that, I mean, some of the teams, as far as I'm concerned, having watched all week, you know, Mark Dacey, for example, he had the pin and he had it in his pocket, and I don't expect that to change. So I didn't really feel in my heart that it was that difficult of ice to to draw on, although the numbers show that. Linda, one of the things that Neil and I again sat together through a couple of games, a number of games actually, and I'll tell you, if you've ever seen tough scorekeeping, you've seen it here. These numbers are low. Yes, some of the numbers are very low compared to what we've seen at the Scott and the Briar, for example. But I'll tell you, these scorekeepers are tough, tough, tough. It's whether they maybe not know the game as well as they should, or, and I'm just presuming that, I don't know, but they don't give you anything.
Well, an opportunity now for Canada to get the blank with the rollout by Ebnöther. Let's take a look at the ice times. They're brought to you by Karcher, and you'll look for things to clean. Linda?
Well, it is pretty standard as far as the numbers we are seeing for ice times, with the hits about 9.5, hack weight 11.5 seconds, hog to hog. The draws around 14, and it has been, according to Ray, fairly consistent that way, so we will keep track of it. The only thing will be if that frost creeps in at all, the sides might change a little bit. But you can see both of the skips, the draw percentages has been very low during round-robin play.
I think some of my old teachers are scorekeeping in Gävle. So a chance for the blank here in the first for Canada and Colleen Jones. And so it's a wide open first end. Jones tried a little offense late. She'll hold on to the hammer. We'll go to the second when we come back to the women's semi from the Ford Worlds. So typical of European cities with many concourses and malls. Gävle, Sweden, about 2 hours north of Stockholm on the Baltic coast as we are into the second end. And first stone from the Swiss lead. Nadia Roethlisberger went top 12, and then it was Canada's Nancy Delahunt who played a hit on it, Linda.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, as Ray has said, to see when Canada does make a move. At this point, they do have the control of the hammer, and that means that they will probably be the first to make a move. It looks like Switzerland isn't going to do it. So we'll see now. Colleen, here we go. She's indicating the guard.
Yeah, Linda, I think that this is very important for Colleen. I think that she makes a huge mistake if she lets Switzerland play up and down the sheet and play it open. Here's a chance. The rock's off to the side at 11 o'clock on the 12-foot, and she's playing a long corner guard. And I think this is exactly what she should do. She's been doing a lot of that during the week. So even going Vic, I was surprised she didn't even do it in the first end. But here she goes.
Now, as you look at that guard, Ray, is that about as far over as they're going to be able to get to go around anything?
Yeah, good question. Good question, Victor. That's almost the perfect spot. You could go a little bit, but not much. But watch when you see, because Lutia is now going to draw around this. So watch this closely. You'll see just how little it curls. Now, each sheet has been a little bit different all week. I will admit that. And some move a little bit more than others. I watched the game on this sheet this morning just to be sure, that I would be correct on the ice surface. And with this intern, there is a little bit of movement. But watch how as it gets by the guard. And you can see, Vic, it's almost in the same position as it was when it passed by the guard.
Yeah, not very much.
No, not very much. We're so used to Linda and Vic as seeing that late finish at home, and that's the one thing that I was talking to Neil Harrison about. He was saying the same thing, that hard to get behind them.
Marianne Arsenault throwing the second stones for the Canadian champions. It's all Mayflower Curling Club at the Worlds, of course, with Mark Dacey, also out of the same club in Halifax. He finishing with a perfect record, 9-0. And so now he will play Germany in the semifinal, and we'll have that for you bright and early Saturday morning here on TSN. Quiet little tap back. She'll sit for shot, top 4.
So the difficulty with this ice being a little bit straighter, Vic, is that this is the kind of game you're forced into. You're now forced into playing shots where you're looking for a mistake from your opponent. Canada will need a jam of some description to try and save that one they just tapped back, left in the 4-foot area. I must admit that it's probably not as easy to make these hits, but one thing about Switzerland, of the two styles of game, they are better at the hitting style, in my opinion, and they will play the quiet weight fairly well. The draw, the come-around game is where they lack a little bit of consistency.
And there they get away with the jam there as Tanya Fry makes the takeout. Who does this game
With the
suit
ice
better?
being-
Ray, who does this game suit?
Sorry, Victor.
Who does this game suit better, do you think, this quiet kind of game? The Canadians, then, if in fact what Linda says is true, that the Swiss are the bigger hitting team?
Yeah, they don't throw a lot of weight when they hit. They can throw weight. Lucia herself can throw it up. But what's going to be so key is hit and rolls, and here's a chance for one right here. So experience in the reading of the ice under these conditions is going to be really the key, Victor. Hit and roll.
So the chance now for the Swiss third, Carmen Kung. And she'll sit right there, top edge of the 8-foot. I would think too, Ray, that when chances like this come along, little hits and rolls, that you have to take advantage of them. They're not going to be there too often.
Yeah, good point, partner. I mean, that really is the truth. You got to, when you get the chance, you got the corner guard set up. You got a chance for a hit and roll here. Kim struggled a little bit in the early week, Linda, as you can see by the numbers, but she's come on lately, and here's a good example of a great hit and roll, and that's the only way you can get behind that corner.
Ray, one of the things you said about Kim was one of the points that you made in reading the ice is that she was throwing the stone a little inside out, and on this straight ice that will really hurt you. It looks like she may have solved that problem.
Yeah, right on, Linda. She does have a tendency to do that. Of course, in the ice surfaces that we play at home, you know, you get that nice big finish, you can maybe get away a little bit with that. But I think she has made an adjustment. And the last 3 or 4 games, Lou, she's really played well. So, you know, and she obviously is one of the keys to this team. And this whole team is so solid. Great hit and roll there.
They got rid of the guard on the one side, but then the shooter rolls over and now covers the 8 on the other. Actually, it didn't go that far. It even just covers the edge of the 4. So maybe a better chance, Ray, for the Canadians to get around it.
Yeah, it's in a good spot. It's similar to where it was on the other side all of a sudden, and we got into this position with a good hit and roll by Kim Kelly, and now she's got to play a come around. Watch closely how it comes across the center line. We're so used to seeing as the rock slows up that big finish and big movement. But once again, as you can see, it just won't break. It tries to, Linda, and it looks like it's going to all the way down the ice. You just can't get it to go.
The Canadians line 2 with the hammer here in the second after the blank in 1. Now it's been, the weather hasn't been the best. I know you were saying it was raining and it looked a little bit damp as you were saying hello to us. Is the wet weather been a factor?
Well, I think in the last half of the week, once again, it was beautiful here, Vic, on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and then all of a sudden, as you mentioned, it cooled off and it started to rain a little bit, and I think that had a little problem because earlier in the week we didn't see any frost line at all, Lou, but there's been a little bit creeping in, but not. It really, and it did straighten out, Linda, as we went further through the week. At the beginning of the week, it looked to me like we were going to have some pretty consistent movement, but it just seemed to disappear as the week went on.
First of the skip stones, Lucia Ebnöther.
Well, this is an interesting choice. She's going after some sort of either hit and roll or double off the front one. I thought she might try it off the shot stone.
Fry and Roethlisberger on the brush. And she'll get the top Canadian stone and then gets away with the jam at the back. Canada continues to lie 1 with the hammer here in the second.
There's great, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think I never seem to. Those
I do
never
them
seem
right.
to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess that's about. You could come this way, but that's guessing.
That's guessing at the ice. Wait, sorry.
Yeah, I don't mind that calling.
Linda, how does the game change?
Well, you know what? I think I'd rather a Christmas tree right there.
All right.
for her
You're right. That part,
and her calling of the game with the ice being so straight?
Well, one of the things we've talked about is that you can't base your game solely on one type of ice. So Colleen is so experienced, she'll have opportunities over the season to play on a little bit straighter ice. So your game calling isn't based on what you saw at the Scott Tournament of Hearts. It's based on some club you played at that has straighter ice. The big change on these sorts of things, Vic, is you have to be very careful not to set up doubles, ways out. So we've talked about where Colleen wants to put this. I showed you maybe top 8, leaving a little portion of each of the stones open, and that forces Lucia to make a big decision as to how she wants to get out of the end.
I don't really like that. Okay. This looks good. It's
So here you just have to be careful, Vic, that Lucia's out is to try and get a double takeout or a hit and roll. As long as the stone is partly covering the back one and not setting up the double, this will be a great shot for Colleen.
Wait only. Where?
Colleen Jones in her first.
Okay, then go.
T-line. Little
Is it
bump.
bumping?
Back 4.
Well, let's sweep it then. Yep,
Sweep.
yep. You're not going to bump it through, is it? No.
May a little bit of a rub and roll, possibly.
Could bump it. Could bump it too far. Could bump. Whoa.
Whoa. Good girl. Okay.
To lie 2. What do you think, Ray?
Well, I'm right behind the sheet again, Victor, and the double is there for Lucia, and this is Linda. You know this team very well, having spent so much time in Switzerland, and as you say, they do travel into Canada to get the experience, and this is the kind of shot that she does like. She uses the high backswing delivery. She can throw the weight, and she throws it very straight, so the double is there.
Lucia Ebnöther facing 2 with her final stone here in the second. Runner-up at the Olympics to Rona Martin in 2002. Runner-up to Kelly Law at the Ford Worlds in 2000. Roethlisberger and Fry. Kung with the line call, run it back and has them both. And Switzerland is lying 3, and that's what Colleen Jones will face with her final stone in the second.
Well, she actually made this shot. It looked like it was going to curl a little bit too much. Surprise, surprise, because of the big weight and the straighter ice, but she makes it, and that is her strength, and that is the one thing we said with Colleen Stone. You can't set it up, and the difficult part, Vic, is Colleen maybe wasn't that far off the broom. It's just that straight.
And so now Colleen needs full 8 foot for a single here in the second. And you talked about Mark Dacey having the pin in his pocket, draw weight. What's Colleen been like, right?
Yeah, Colleen's played, drawn pretty well all week, Victor. She has such great judges of the weight in those 2 sweepers, Kim and Marianne, and they're great judges of weight, and they are great brushers too.
Kim Kelly on the left, Marianne Arsenault on the right, full 8 foot, facing 3 for a single here in the second. Nancy Delahunt with that little wave with the right hand as she salutes Canada's Queen of Curling, Colleen Jones. Gävle, Sweden is the site of this year's Ford Worlds. Canada with a 1-0 lead. Just to give you some perspective, Gävle is at 60 degrees latitude north. So that puts it on the same latitude as Anchorage, Alaska. As we welcome you back to TSN's coverage of the women's semifinal, Canada with a single point in the second. And so for the first time in the game, it is the Swiss playing the Redstones that have the hammer in the third.
There was 2 very nice shots to conclude that last end. A nice double by Lucia of Switzerland, and then a very nice draw by Colleen. No problem on the draw. They kept it clean the whole way, dusted it in. You saw them sweep it right to the 4 foot, so Colleen has that visual in her mind of a perfect draw. She can bring that back later in the game if she needs it.
Ray, we told everybody earlier about the the way the playoffs broke down with both with Norway, Canada, and Switzerland getting through to the Final Four, then needing 2 tiebreakers, and it was Scotland over Sweden in the first tiebreaker yesterday, and at Norberg losing to Jackie Lockhart. And then this morning, Lockhart, Scotland against the U.S., but it was Patty Lank who was the winner. So now Lank, later today, in the other semifinal, will play, well, no surprise, Dorte Nordby from Norway, but she seems to be a revitalized Dorte Nordby.
Yeah, she really does, Vic. It's, you know, we've watched her so much, all of us, and all the Canadians have seen her so much. But in the last number of years, she really seemed to lose her enthusiasm, but she has it back. And she has that little jump in her step, and she really looks strong all week. And she wasn't doing, Linda, you know, she wasn't playing some of those crazy shots that she liked to play. And she has Lynn Gitmark, of course, now as we saw, the world junior champion playing third. And I think she started out at second, but she is now playing third. And that seems to have given Dorte a new outlook. And boy, I'll tell you, she will be tough no matter who she plays.
Well, she finished the round robin in first place, and Linda, it was her best performance at a world championship, Nordby I'm speaking of, since she won her last championship. And of course you have to go all the way back to 1991.
It's one of those things where the countries that have fewer players, Norway does not have a lot of competitive players, have to be thinking about, with Olympics coming down the road again, how they're going to plan for the future, because Dorte, let's face it, has been around for a while, and she's not a young player anymore. And in my opinion, this is the best thing that could happen to both Dorte and Lynn Gitmark, a chance for Lynn to get experience at the World Women's, and a chance for Dorte to have a young player with enthusiasm and a different insight come onto the team. So if you talk about succession planning, as we do in the business world, this is a great thing, in my opinion, for Norway to think about this kind of process, forced this year by an injury, but I think it was a good thing for Norway in the long run.
Well, I can remember Ole Ingveldsson, who was the coach of the Norwegian team, saying back in Trois-Rivières, Ray, that that's one of the things that they were going to do a little bit more mixing and matching in Norway, trying to look for the combinations, almost all-star type teams. And again, I guess it goes back to what Linda says. It's all about the numbers of curlers, and there aren't very many at that level of the Dorte Nordby.
No, that's for sure. And there isn't any question, Linda just mentioned it, the fact that there's a real buzz in curling about the Olympics, especially here in Europe. And Norway has a taste of gold with Paul Trolson winning in Salt Lake City. And there's no question they want to send a team back that could maybe get that gold again. There was a lot of enthusiasm in Europe, as we all know, in Britain, about Rona Martin's gold medal and the coverage it got from the Olympics in Salt Lake City. And so that's one way of doing it. I guess the only thing, Linda, is that sometimes if you do that and you match teams like that and you don't send your winners, and for example, when you send teams that are picked, you do sometimes take a chance of killing the enthusiasm of some of the other competitors, and also and then you don't get the numbers.
No, I guess, Ray, what I'm saying is that you build a team to play throughout the season and play off for your championship, but you build teams and fun teams with that blend of experience and youth.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. That is the way to do it. They just have so few numbers.
A wide open end by the Swiss here in the third. It's been up and down the sheet for Lucia Ebnöther. Talking about positioning of the stone here, Linda, where they want to go?
It's pretty late in the end to do much with this. I think one of the things that'll be interesting now to see if Lucia, we waited to see how Colleen would play the corner guard scenario with the hammer. Now we'll have to see if Lucia is willing to put up a guard and take some chances, but you pretty well have to do it on lead stones if you're going to have that stone in a position to set up a deuce. This has been Lucia's problem, in my opinion, the inability to score with the hammer, the extra point.
Carmen Kung to the back 12.
There really seems to be a reluctancy by a lot of the European countries to utilize the rule that they've been using for a long time, the free guard zone area with the 4 rock rule. And we saw it all. We actually had a game during the round robin, this Scotland, Sweden, I believe it was. It was 1-1 after 9.
No,
I think that was the score, but
that takes us back. Eh? That's almost taking us back to the Brier days when we used to have 2-1, 3-2 scores. Don't see that very often anymore.
Remember that Hamilton Brier, Vic, where we saw that 1-0 game through 9?
Yeah.
Stoughton and Martin.
And that forced the Canadian Curling Association to reconsider the rule, and that's how the free guard zone came about.
Now, Ray, one of the ways to counter straighter ice and the inability to draw around guards is to put the guards tight to the rings and play some taps, some raises. Have you seen teams opt for that at all?
Oh, very nice shot there.
Actually, the men's team, Canadian team, has done a lot of that, Linda. Mark has certainly recognized the fact how it's difficult to get around, and we have seen. That's a good point. We have seen more of that, and that really is the only way to totally get a rock covered is by tapping something back.
I know. Yeah, good girl. Right there.
Carmen Kung takes advantage of the Canadian stone sitting at the back of the 8 as she plays right down to the face of it. Skip stones to come here in the third, 1-0 Canada. Colleen Jones.
Yep. Hurry. Hurry. All the way. Hurry. Whoa. Leave it, Nan.
Well, I mean, it's going to go this way.
So the jam,
Sorry, I didn't think it would go. So.
and now the Swiss are set up for a possible 2 here if they can separate the stones.
That was a very nice draw by the Swiss third. She put it into a good spot. Colleen did have a little room to blast it out of there, but as soon as it started to curl, you can see the difficulty that now Lucia can actually make a little hit and roll and get some separation on her 2 stones.
Aber das kann er fast nicht, weil er magst du schon dem nicht vorbei. Nase ist okay, Carmen. Komm.
Gut, Nase oder ein bisschen aussen, hä?
Ja.
Timmli, Nase ist gut.
Nase wäre gar nicht schlecht. Das stimmt doch. Weil dann wiegt sie mit ihrem raus, wenn sie einen Doppel macht.
Discussion here, Linda, is about where to catch that yellow stone, trying to avoid the jam.
Trying to get a little bit of a roll away and not jam it. You're right, Vic. She can roll a little bit to the left and still get it by the red one, and that was part of the discussion.
You see, Ray, you may be there, but this is the advantage that Linda and I have over here, is that we understand the Swiss. It's not all Swedish.
Well, I'm depending on you to decipher all of this then.
Oh, now she'll sit right there, but is there a double, Ray, there, do you think?
Well, there is a double for sure. The shooter, you'd lose the shooter, but maybe the hit and roll in front of that one would be almost as good, Vic. The double is there. That's what she's kind of lining up and looking at now.
Yeah, 3/4, Colleen.
That's about right. 3/4 of the stone, you'll get the double.
Same weight.
So the option would be to hit the one in the 4-foot and roll in front of the other. And Vic, this comes down to the certainty of the ice conditions, whether you know whether you can hit that to make the double. The straighter ice actually makes doubles a little bit easier usually. You don't have to read in some curl to know where to hit it.
So see, Ebnöther made a nice double to get Switzerland out of some trouble in the second, and now it's Colleen Jones.
Whoa. Whoa. No, whoa. Whoa. Right off, Marianne.
Good.
Just outside, as now it'll be a draw for 2 for Switzerland. Was her delivery outside, Ray?
Well, she obviously threw it wide, Vic, because they right out of her hand, you heard Nancy say, whoa, whoa, right off. And if you get outside at all with that kind of weight, there's no curl. You just, it's gone. You can't wait for it to move because it's not going to come at all.
Go by the whole thing.
Well, yeah, it was pretty thin. Yeah, it looked pretty thin.
So Lucia has shown us she's able to hit very well. This is the key part of her game that she needs to bring to the ice today in the playoffs, and that's the draw game. This is wide open, but she has to get the feel early.
Put it in the paint.
It's her first draw today, and it looks like she's making no mistake.
Lucia Ebnöther and Switzerland will score 2 in the third. They'll have the lead. This is the women's final from the Ford Worlds on TSN. Welcome back to TSN's coverage of the women's semifinal from the Ford World Curling Championships in Gävle, Sweden. Switzerland and Lucia Ebnöther from Bern scored 2 in the third. They have a 2-1 lead over Canada. Canadians playing the Yellowstones with the hammer as we play now in 4. Nadia Roethlisberger throws the lead stones for the Swiss.
The nice thing for Switzerland, Vic, is they made that freeze, almost a perfect freeze, and that was a very low-risk way of going for a deuce. They did it late in the end. If Colleen had made the hit, she could have blasted things out of there, but they could have gone for the blank. So it was a terrific end for Switzerland, ending up with a deuce. And now it will be Colleen forced to make some decisions about whether she will go for it this end.
Nancy Delahunt playing her second lead stone. Are you surprised so far, Ray, because you said you expected Colleen to play a little bit more aggressively. Are you surprised that she hasn't so far?
Well, the one thing we do know about Colleen, she really is hesitant to ignore a stone in the forefoot, and the Swiss lead threw it right into the top of the button, so she hit it. Lots of teams would have just left it there and played the corner at that point. Colleen does not do that. But you'll see if this rock doesn't go back to the exact center area, then Colleen will go up and play the corner guard. Like, she'll play the corner guard now, no matter where that stone finishes.
And the hand goes up, and that's where the stone will hopefully go, corner guard.
The interesting part of all of that guard placement, Vic, is if you don't do it on your leads first stone when you have the hammer, it is open. Any guard you put up is now open to a hit by the opponent. So if Switzerland wanted to, with that little edge now, getting the deuce, they could try and run this and force Colleen to play those guards earlier. Now that's not something I necessarily expect, but that is one danger when you play with the hammer and don't throw your guards up on that first stone.
Going around? Yeah.
Yeah, the decision to go around here, I think. She's thinking about what Linda just said. She could peel it off. We got a good look at Marianne Way there, Linda, and boy, I tell you, she really is Marianne Arsenault, as you know, we know, but she's the Marianne of old. She really is. She's playing so well. Last year, maybe not as consistent as she usually is, but boy, she's been back playing really very, very well.
Tanya Fry.
Now she definitely has the edge at that second position. She was the top second during round robin play, and looks like her numbers have been very good during the week.
Thought it had 8-foot weight, and it'll bury, sit top 12.
This is the turn that will come, Linda. This is that out turn, wide out turn from the outside in around the corner, and this will curl. a little.
Marianne Arsenault.
A lot of weight here.
Well done. Close for line. Yep. Good. Three line.
Going the other way, Ray.
Yep. Line.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. She
Hurry.
need to get it by the red one here. You can see, Linda, there was a little movement. Unfortunately, they had to brush that all the way, so it's a little heavy, but that is that wide out turn around the corner guard will come a bit.
Tell me through, because I would have let it rack.
We're just hearing a little miscommunication there, Linda. Colleen said, you have to let me know, because if it isn't, I'll let it crash.
It's one of those things that we don't often see them make a mistake like that, but definitely you heard one of the voices, I think it was Nancy, saying it was too strong and not to brush it, but then they brushed it for line and thus the mistake. This is an interesting thought process now for Lucia. You can see that she's just not sure where she wants to put it. The only thing you can't do if you're Switzerland is come deep and let Colleen have the same chance again.
Ebnöther holds the brush for her third, Carmen Kung.
About 3 feet of curl with this turn.
Sneak it by that guard, yes. Can they get it by their own top 12? Yes. T-line weight? Yes. Head to the 4 to lie 2, the Swiss, without the hammer here in the 4th.
The other thing she could do here, Linda, is run that back, the yellow one back.
This is the point where Kim needs to make the shot. If you don't make it now, if that rock is left in the 4-foot, if you somehow tick the front or even tick it over, huge advantage for Switzerland.
Kim Kelly.
Back better. Yeah, we're back 8, back 12. Whoa. Getting better.
Makes the
Good
hit,
shot, Kim.
rolls away,
Nice shot.
but not far enough. The Swiss are still lying shot without the hammer back 8.
It's still a good shot. She had to make sure she moved that red stone out of the 4-foot and exposed it, which she did. Now Lucia has to remove it because of the fact that Canada has the hammer. So a little hit and roll here is important for Switzerland, or now Canada has an opportunity to get in there, Vic, get in behind cover first.
Back now. Back.
Achtung!
Back.
Oh,
Back.
gar nicht.
Penny.
Okay.
Hits it right on the nose to lie 2, right?
Yeah, it just ran straight down, a little extra weight, and it runs straight, as we know. And so the calling of the ice here is to be interesting call for Colleen now. She could play down to the back one, draw down to it, or she could play the hit and roll. She's kind of asking Kim, what would you like? Let's remember Kim coming this way in the second end. Kim got a nice hit and roll to potentially set up an extra point, and here's another chance to do so.
Whoa. Regular. Whoa. No.
Nancy Delahunt, Marianne Arsenault back right off. All on its own, Kim Kelly here in the 4th. Gets it outside, and it's now the Swiss lying 2 without. Has that been indicative, that throw of Kim's play this week, right?
Yeah, well, that's almost, Linda, I think, a little bit, Victor, a little bit of a mental error by Kim, in the sense that, yes, in answer to your question, yes, that's a little bit of the kind of thing that she struggled with early. Yeah. But you cannot miss that on the outside. It's so easy to say that, but because you're talking about fractions of inches, but it's just one thing you can't do with that shot is to hit it and roll out, and now it really puts the Switzerland into a wonderful position to put the pressure on Colleen. If you hit the stick anywhere, they're probably going to hit it, and at least Colleen's going to have a draw, an in-turn draw to the back one with her first stone. But now if Switzerland puts it in the right spot, I mean, Colleen's in deep trouble, Lou.
Linda, where is the right spot here? You don't have the hammer, Switzerland.
Right, so Switzerland's trying to cut off that in-turn for Colleen. They could play the same wide turn knowing that it buries, but in this case they're trying to bring a top 8 foot, which will cut off that back stone for Colleen to play a very good freeze. There'll be something left for her, but it will start to get very crowded with red stones.
Lucia Ebnöther, first of the skip stones in the fourth. 2-1, Switzerland leading in this women's semifinal. Roethlisberger is on the left, Fry on the right, looking to get it to the 8 foot.
And there's a big break for Canada with that coming up short. That had to be in for Switzerland. They had a huge advantage of having rocks in the house in a good spot, but now Colleen has a guard and a rock to come to.
And those two
You're right on there, Linda. That's a big break, because if they had closed it off, had it on the center line, for example, blocking off that back one, the come around is very difficult for Colleen. But she has a chance now. Got to make it this time.
Ja, wenn er lange spielt, ist der Morgen noch nicht zu viel, darfst du nicht gehen, sonst machen wir drauf. Das stimmt. Ich meine, sie haben das praktisch nicht. Genau, die haben nicht durchgewusst.
4.5, same as I drew 2 ends ago.
I don't think it's that quick here. 4-2 to the tee.
Right back to it.
Hair last, Nance.
Got 4-7 on hers.
Colleen Jones in her first. And those two stones, those Swiss stones now are overlapped out front, Linda. If they can never get behind those.
Line straight. Line, wait only.
Line straight.
Wait only, guys. Looks like a lot. It's not a lot. It's just to
Right
it.
to it. Right to it. Yep. Right to it.
Do you want just to it for sure? Okay, right back then. I'm hoping she plays a little bit.
Not quite to it. Sits back edge of the button. Canada line one with the hammer. But too deep, Linda?
It's a nice shot. No, I don't think so. I think she had to get it in there to be in a position where she'll get a mistake from her opponent. Huge mistake on Lucia's first one to leave that one out front.
Darf man sogar ein bisschen müpfen, hä? Was? Darf man sogar auch ein bisschen müpfen? Ja, genau drauf, ist gut. Gut.
Yeah, just down on top, Ray, they're saying is good enough. If we can just get it down on top.
Thank you, Victor.
Just trying to help. You can help me with your Swedish.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. But a chance, Ray, for Switzerland to get out of this if they can freeze it right to the face.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Linda, though. I mean, yes, she can freeze right to the face, and maybe it's a little deep, but I mean, Colleen was in big trouble, Victor. You know, if that first rock of Lucia gets in the right spot, but and this isn't quite as easy as you think to get it frozen to the face of this. You have to be absolutely perfect. You can't bump off it, or Colleen could have a shot at 2.
And
yes,
she
absolutely.
will have the shot. Yep, bet.
And Vic, that is my point, that Lucia, if she's going to make a mistake, is going to be on the weight. We see the big backswing, and sometimes she just lets it go a little bit too hard, and that's what happened there.
Ray, aren't you surprised that in this day and age when so many people are doing no backswing deliveries, that she looks like she just came out of Brandon, Manitoba? Lucia Ebnöther.
You're always picking on Brandon. She uses the big swing, and you don't see much of it. And yes, you're right, most of the teams, because you don't need that big swing any longer, have gone to the no backswing. I personally still swing the stone, but yeah, it is a surprise, Vic. And as Linda says, you know, maybe that is her little bit of her weakness, is her ability to control or to feel the draw away, because she comes hard out of the hack.
So Colleen Jones has a chance to get the deuce right back here for Canada. Final stone in the fourth. Little quiet hit.
Yep. Whoa. Whoa. Clean. Yeah. Whoa. Clean. Yes, hard. Great up. Great shot, Colleen.
Nancy likes it already. And why not? It's 2 for Canada in the fourth. The Canadians have the lead. The NHL playoffs continue on TSN Saturday at 3 Eastern Time. Colorado and San Jose. San Jose winning Game 1 5-2 last night. Patrick Marleau with the hat trick for the Sharks. You're in a pretty famous building, you know, that Gävle Rinken, Ray. You know who played hockey there before coming to the NHL?
Gloria Salming.
Yes, good for you.
And Willie and by the way, I had lunch yesterday
with Borja?
With Willie Lindstrom.
Oh, with Willie Lindstrom.
No.
Really?
With Willie Lindstrom. Remember 6 goals in 1 game against Philadelphia in 1982?
82.
Would you remember that, Dick?
It's before my time, actually.
I think it's still a record in the NHL.
As we go to the 5th, and Canada with a nice 2 to get themselves right back into it and take a lead 3-2. So it is the Swiss playing the Redstones with the hammer. Nancy Delahunt throwing lead for Canada.
2 very nice shots by Colleen. She got the team out of trouble on her first, and then with Lucia missing that freeze, had the opportunity for the open hit for the second point. And that is a big douche. You can see that it's got Switzerland into a different style of play. They're now putting some guards up.
Linda, you and I were talking during the break about Ebnöther and the fact she continues with that big backswing. It's not the backswing that's the problem for you, is it?
No, it's the lack of regulation of the size of the swing and the amount of speed coming forward with the body. Most people that have a swing change the height when the ice is a little faster or they're playing a draw versus a hit. Lucia tends to swing it hard, as Ray was saying. The body's still crashing out of the hack, and then she has trouble pulling back at the last moment. So some people go to the no backswing on the draws and guards, but I just have a little bit of trouble with the way she doesn't change that speed.
Nice shot by the Swiss lead, Nadia Roethlisberger. She got it through the hole and managed to get to the top of the 8'4" shot stone. You know, the other thing, Ray, is on those, we often see players now will obviously backswing on takeouts and then no lift on draws.
Yeah, we do, Victor. And I'm with Linda. I don't have any problem with the swing at all. It's just the way she does swing. And let's think back a little bit. Debbie McCormick, who throws it as well as anybody in the world, our reigning world champion, she has a beautiful flat level swing and has no trouble with draw weight. And think of Mark Dacey, of course, he swings a stone. So it's just the way she does swing it. She does, as Linda suggests, she does come out of there very hard with the rock pulling her almost.
Marianne Arsenault gets just enough of the Swiss stone and then rolls over into the open back of the 4. So Canada for the moment is lying 2. Tanya Fry.
12 hou. 12 hou, 13. 13.
You can see the teams are even afraid of cleaning. You heard the Swiss team call out Sauber, that's to clean it, but it's just so straight, Vic. They're afraid to put those brushes down.
Yeah, that's about what you just threw.
This is a weight shot. You've got to have the perfect weight here.
Got room.
Back line.
It's not quite back line, just back 4. Yep. I think we've got back line. Whoa, whoa. Yep. Whoa. Whoa. Whoa.
It's going to need your help. Any roll at all, Nance, your way.
Yep. Good girl. Great shot. Great weight, Marianne.
Nice weight.
Center guns.
Yeah, it's a little faster, and that's what it is on this side.
Up and fast.
Back way.
Come on, Mom. Heck.
Ray, does do the conditions, and I know you adjust to the conditions, and that's part of the game. But does it, when it takes you out of your comfort zone, as I'm suggesting it does to Canada, does it make you then more nervous when you're playing the more finesse shots?
Well, I think if you didn't have the experience and couldn't adjust to it, Vic, you would be nervous. I don't think in this case, I just kind of disagree a little bit with you. I think that in a sense, I think Canada knows how to play the quiet game like that. I think Colleen and this entire team have the ability to be able to adjust to it. I think actually, going back to your original question, I think if anything, it's an advantage to Team Canada to have the ice conditions a little bit like this, where you have to be so precise with number one, reading the ice, and number two, being able to come down in the weight and controlling it with good brushing.
Regular? Regular. Put it back a little.
You heard the comment. I put it back a little.
And Ray, you've been saying that that's really a key, and that's the one thing when we look at the numbers over the course of the week with Kim Kelly and even with Colleen, this has been the difficulty. This is the percentages game by game for Colleen in yellow and Kim in gray, and you can see that only in the first game against Switzerland it happened did the two put together big games. Then look how they both go up and down over the week, including one game by Kim under 50%. And it has been that little trouble, Vic, with the release in some cases, with the weight in others, and yes, the delay, the lateness of the event, that's part of it, but it's not the consistency that we've seen in the past from both of those two players who set up the end so beautifully time after time.
Carmen Kung crashes on the center line guard.
Okay.
We just talked about inconsistency from Kim Kelly, but Carmen is a key player for Lucia as well. Lucia will make some big shots, but she needs the setup by Carmen.
We don't need to bump it, you know, because then you've got this.
Okay.
As long as we don't give him a double this way.
Exactly.
We could hit the open one or guard, whatever.
Well, I think it's just right here.
Okay.
Okay.
So the decision made to play the guard, Ray. How important is that, or how important is Kim to the success of this team?
Oh, big time, Victor. You know that. She's been the MVP of a number of Scots and Worlds in the past. She just is a great player, and you know, there isn't a skip alive that won't tell you, boy, if you get a third that's setting you up, it makes the game a lot easier and gives you that much more confidence when you go to throw yourself. I don't like a high guard here at all. I would either go into a little bit. She was trying to cover both stones, but
I don't mind this. No.
that's too high.
Push them out.
Yeah.
The other tough part about it, Ray, is they were guarding the double. They had to because there's a red stone over on the far side, so they couldn't leave the double, but it does expose shot rock.
I think it would have gone right in, Linda, and tapped.
Roethlisberger and Fry with the brush. Get it by the guard, they do. Get it by the top one, not quite. A little rub. And now the shooter will spill out, and the Canadian stone sitting top edge of the 8-foot is shot.
It's kind of an interesting result, though, Vic, because it did expose the other Canadian rocks. So Colleen now has to be very careful. There are two Swiss stones. Yeah, they're not shot rock, but there are two of them in the house.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. And then I'm giving her the hit and roll, which I don't want to do.
Why wouldn't you use that silly guard I put up there?
Kim Kelly still beating herself up, Ray, a little bit about that guard and how long it was.
Yeah, it just was way too long, Victor.
I'm afraid of rolling too far for giving her. How does this in turn? See, the problem with the roll is bringing back in this. We're sitting two here, and then she has to make a great roll.
Yeah, sure.
She's got the whole side to roll.
Lindy, you have to, if you're Canada, make one of those reds go away.
So we're number 2 still?
Yeah. We'll just listen to them for a sec, Vic. Yes, in my opinion, you have to hit. The question is where to roll, because a big roll might set up a double.
Double into the equation, especially because she can double and roll there.
Okay, how much for number 2? That's good.
So they're just going to hit it and sit 1-2. You can see the Yellowstone top 8-foot, 12-foot area would be shot rock, and so just make this second shot go away and try and stay somewhere in the house. Try and stay for first and second shots. Regular?
It's no curl.
No, it's not, Kim. It's not going to curl.
Oh, okay.
Pretty straight for the wings.
It does finish.
Whoa, whoa!
We could roll way over
Whoa,
now.
whoa, whoa!
Way
Pauline
over.
Jones in her first. Now the big roll. Will it stop in time? Ebnöther trying to drag it back. Take it a little bit more. And it'll be close.
Huh?
Tricky way to do it.
What do you think, Ray? 1 or 2, Canada line?
No, the intern will.
I think the line 2, Vic.
The outturn north here.
It is close, though. You're right.
Yeah, it looks like 2 to me.
Goed, we gaan het proberen, oder? Huh? Ja. Oder hem einfach so wandering zo.
Stopped, thankfully.
So through the hole, Linda, catch the shot stone and what? Sit there, or would you like to roll and use some of those guards?
And she's going to try and overcurl a little bit and try and get the center line side of it. There would be a chance of then catching the other Canadian stone and getting a bit of a roll.
Okay.
Lucia Ebnöther and her first.
Zo. Ho, ho. Zo, ho. Ho, zo, ho. Achtung. Ho. Zo.
Got a little roll? She does. Did it pop out into the open, Ray?
No, sir. It looks good to me. You can see just the corner of it. Only way you could get to it is to pick it, and you pick it back into the other 2 stones. So it's a great shot. It was a wonderful roll.
Can't get the double on this side.
I see what you mean.
Yeah. So back here. Okay. Bring it even with that other one of ours back there. So
I'm
behind
going
the
to try and bring
tee.
it deeper, Vic.
You have to be full 8.
The tough part of making a save now is just the ice. We've talked about it being straight. Lucia got that little roll. She has left a path, and the guard is long, so it is okay to get in there. But the question is, how much will it curl? So they're going to bring it deep and try and get as much curl as they can and not set up a double on the other one. Remember, still, there's another red stone on that far side.
4-2.
4-2 to the tee.
Careless.
Is this shot as difficult as it is, Ray? Would it be more difficult if there was greater curl, or in fact, would you go the other turn maybe if they had more curl?
Line's good.
No,
Wait
I think if there's a
only.
little more curl in it, you can anticipate getting in and buried so they can't get at it. With this here, if you stay out in the open, as Linda suggests, and you don't get it back far enough, they could set up some kind of a double.
Big scrub to
That
get
would
it
be
by that
disastrous,
stone.
but-
Top 12, got it by, they do. What a beautiful shot as they'll catch the button. Pauline Jones with her last one here in 5.
Trying hard to curl. No curl.
But now did she leave enough, Linda? Is there enough sticking out?
Well, there's definitely enough to play the tap, Vic. It looks like you probably aren't going to risk playing anything else because there isn't as much showing. And remember, straight ice, you're not going to get as much finish by that front stone when you play the extra weight.
You think she's playing the double here, Ray? Or is that too much ice for that?
No, she's playing it pretty quietly with that ice.
Okay.
Just tapping it back, I think. got quite a bit of ice. Just tapping it back.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, did they wait. There was some late movement. And then they held their breath as they were able to get it by their own. Switzerland has the lead through 5. When we come back, Ray will talk with Canadian champion Mark Dacey. This is the Ford Worlds on TSN. Today, it's the women. Tomorrow, we'll have coverage of the men's semifinal from the Ford Worlds. Mark Dacey, perfect through round robin, goes against Sebastian Stock from Germany, from Oberstdorf. And we'll have it for you Saturday morning, bright and early, 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time. That's 4:30 Pacific Time. Dacey against Stock, and Mark is with Ray.
Mark, you've just come out of Saskatoon. It's your first trip to the World Championships, and of course, Saskatoon, 12,000 people, pretty electrifying. Maybe your impressions of your first World Championships.
Well, it's certainly a different atmosphere from the Brier. It's much smaller venue, smaller crowd. The European teams do a lot of high-fiving and talking in the other language. So it's a little different, but it's just such a great experience. Wearing the maple leaf on your back and just being out here representing Canada. It's a feeling you wish every Canadian could feel.
Absolutely. Mark, I noticed, having watched all week, that the ice doesn't give you what we're used to seeing in Canada. There isn't a lot of late finish. Have you adjusted to that to your satisfaction?
Yeah, I think, and we talked about it early on that, in Brier ice, you can basically stick the rock a little wide and it's always going to come back for you. But on this ice, it's just the opposite. If you're a little wide, it never comes back. You can actually be a little bit narrow and hold it with some good hard sweeps. So you just adjust the way you release the rock. Try to put it into the broom instead of away from the broom, and you'll get that curl. But if you set anything out, you can forget about it. It just tracks.
Thanks very much, and good luck, Mark.
Thanks, Ray.
Midway through this women's semifinal, during the break, Colleen Jones and the team are down by 1, but they'll have the hammer when we come back to Gävle.
The 2004 Ford World Curling Championships from Sweden are brought to you by Nokia, official wireless phone of the Season of Champions. By Karcher, you'll look for things to clean. And by Ford, built for life in Canada.
The numbers after 5 brought to you by True Value Hardware. Help is just around the corner. Linda?
The numbers are pretty similar between the two teams, Canada with a slight edge. If you look closer, the Canadian skip, Colleen Jones, she's got the great draw percentage. Lucia Ebnöther, the great hit percentage. And so far, Switzerland is 2 for 2, converting with the hammer. And that's been the story so far.
And I think, if I remember, that was one of your keys to the game, was
it
it not? Whether they, in fact, could convert. And so the Swiss did again in the 5th with 2. As we go to the 6th now, Canada playing the Yellowstones with the hammer down 4-3. Linda Moore alongside in our curling control. Ray Turnbull is in the Gävle Rinken in Gävle, Sweden for this semi-final of the Ford Worlds. As the cowbells, Ray, echo around the Gävle Rinken.
Yeah, the Swiss, as always, are, very, very involved in the game with their hop Swiss. What does that mean, by the way?
Go. Go Swiss.
Go Swiss?
Go
That's
Swiss, yeah.
Okay, all right. With their chant, hop Swiss, and their cowbells. And I sat in that section one game, and just one game.
Came out deaf.
Yeah, it was, and they have those big flags they wave, and which is great. I mean, it's all great. Unfortunately, there just isn't enough
of
spectators
them
in the area
no.
to.
Well, there's only, as we mentioned earlier, there's only the 250 curlers in the city. of some 90,000, as you told us. Nancy Delahunt.
The one very interesting thing to watch, and this has not changed over the years, is that the Europeans often play on straighter ice, so you will see them over curl some shots, Vic, where you may be surprised that they do. But in the shots that we're watching so far anyways, the Swiss team tend to throw that release from the outside of the broom to a little bit inside, and that outside in release means you get more curl. It's cost them a couple of times on actually rubbing front stones. And you saw Lucia's rock last end just get by a front stone because of the little bit of extra curl you get with that release. Canada, on the other hand, when they've had the mistake, have had the opposite, the inside to the outside release, and it runs so much straighter. So people may be wondering how Tanya, for example, and Nadia have been over curling some of those stones. That's the reason.
Ray, I was asking Linda in the break after Ebnöther had scored the 2. Would you have played the double for a possible 4, or just taken the 2?
No, I would have played exactly what she played, Vic. She's got the 2 points. She's in a little control.
Canada with the hammer, down by 1 as we begin play here in 6. Marianne Arsenault. Next year, of course, the Women's Worlds will be played in Paisley, Scotland, which is just outside of Glasgow. And they'll be played much earlier, Linda, by about a month, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. It will be the first of the 2 world events, very early, because it will be the 3rd week of March. Probably not a bad thing, as we've already talked about Canada struggling with the long lag this year between the Scott Tournament of Hearts and the World Championships. It will also, I understand, Vic, go to 12 teams. They will qualify another team through Europe and Pacific Rim. And we'll go to a draw more like we see in Canada with 4 sheets of ice and buys and that sort of thing.
And the men's worlds, the Ford Worlds, will be played in Victoria. And further to that, Ray, they're going to go to the Page playoff system, I understand, next year at the Worlds.
That's what I understand, Victor. This was a chance for Marianne. You don't see that very often, especially this year. But it was a good chance for her to get in behind that corner guard in front of the back stone. But with the miss coming up short, it really puts Canada in a tough spot right here now.
Back line to hack. Back line. Yep. Hard. Whoa. Just back line. Hurry then, hard. Hard line. Hurry. Bye. Not enough to hit it very far. Right on out of there.
Enough to push it back and through?
Good.
No. So is the Swiss lying 2 back 8.
Men det är så.
And covered 2.
Nej. Ik zijn er niet meer. Zijn er terug
Ja, dat is nog heel schwer.
Yeah, I don't think that one is open enough to play it the way Lucia was thinking, to try and tap it straight. I think you'd just be jamming it, and if you try and hit it Vic and roll the other way, you're just exposing those 2 back ones to Colleen. So I think you don't have a lot of choice here but to try and protect for the moment.
And from the other end, I think she said, I can see maybe half to 3/4 of it. Carmen Kung. A big scrub to get it by that Canadian stone, the high center line guard.
I do have to make sure we get something in there.
I like there. Or here.
I think the outturn
That's easier, I think.
Okay.
We don't mind the. Oh, okay.
Either turn
Well,
is
you know what,
available.
Kim? You get there, and it's going to be tough for them to get it out.
Which turn would you
Yeah, she doesn't
play?
have to get the.
Which turn
Yeah,
would you play?
I agree, Vic, that I think this is the shot. If she gets it around, even a quarter around, as Linda suggests, it's going to be very, very difficult to get out. You can't be heavy here. You have to force her to make a shot, or she'll get another chance to close the end off.
Chance for a hit and roll here for Switzerland.
There's the hit, and not much of a roll. Switzerland without the hammer line shot. It's very close for second shot.
Ray, that's one of those shots that we talk about which turn to play. Have you seen the teams play that other turn, the inside to outside turn, to try and get the roll?
Have we ever seen it, Linda?
Make sure hard.
Not a lot.
Hard, make sure. Only for weight.
Is that your answer? That's my answer.
Hard. Gotta be here though. Hard. Hurry. Hurry, girls. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Right up. Right up. Quick.
Delahunt, Arsenault with the brush, and it'll come up short, just grabbing the top edge of the 12.
She had great line, Vic, but just underthrew it.
Gleich über den Doge oder über den Doge. Am besten ja hier. Das stellt sie ihr noch in den Weg. Das Beste wäre natürlich optimal, wenn wir ihn bis da hinten brechen.
Was ist, wenn wir den zutun?
Da hier.
I mean, where do you go, Linda, I guess is their dilemma. If you play the little angle raise on the red stone, what do you leave Canada, or do you play the guard and try to prevent them from bumping up their own?
Yeah, it is a good question whether to play the tap or just to guard it. At this point, Colleen doesn't have an easy raise except for the time, that close one, the top of the 12-foot. And so you have to make a decision if you're Lucia. She has struggled with draws, and so sometimes she'll pick the simpler of the two shots pick, which is certainly the guard.
What would you play here, Ray?
I think I'd guard the tap back, as what she was talking about was playing her own red one back to the 4-foot, catching it a bit on the outside and pushing it over to the 4-foot in behind the yellow that potentially could be tapped up, and that would prevent Colleen from doing that. So that was a possibility. I think I would just cover this, though. There is a hole on the other side, as you can see, and Colleen may have to go through that. It's a small one, but it's there.
Zwischen Gel und Rot.
Bisschen aussen für Set.
Genau, zwischen Gel und Rot muss es sein.
Genau. Mitte. Zwei. Mitte, nicht enger. Mitte. Mitte, zwei. Mitte bis nach.
Talking about middle of
Mitte nach.
the free guard zone is.
I think the halfway guard is what they describe as Mutti.
Nicht mehr gönnen. Ganz nicht mehr gönnen. Nicht. Das ist perfekt so. Ganz nah. Sit. Das ist gut so. Gut.
Some things just translate like sit, Ray.
She was wanting that longer and without so much curl, Vic. Now the double bump is there for Colleen. The two stones are one in front of the other, making that double bump possible.
You can see there it's deep breath time for Colleen here in this sixth. She does have the hammer, but she's under some pressure.
Okay. Hit half of that rock.
Well, she's made a lot of good shots to this point to keep this team alive if you go back and review the ends. And here's another shot that she really has to make. She has to make this double raise, tap, tap, push that yellow back into the forefoot someplace.
Je hebt toch iets die ermee kan veel eens? Nee, dat doet hij niet. Wel, maar dan niet eerst meteen. Ja, is dat genoeg.
The nice thing, Ray, is there's a lot of options as to where to hit the red one to push the yellow one up. But you're right, she's got to make some contact to get the second stone, the yellow one being bumped up into shot rock position.
Whoa! 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 Curl! Curl! Get over! Curl! Hard on it!
Nancy,
Hard on it!
Nancy, get
Hard.
ready.
Boy, you know what? It is, and I'll suggest, as you say, the ice is unforgiving, Ray. You just have to put it in the right spot. You don't get away with anything on this ice.
Well, I think Linda summed it up perfectly just a few moments ago when she talked about the actual releases. The Canadian teams, all in general, have a tendency to make sure they're always full and out to it because our ice does give you that late finish. This ice does not. And so it's, you need to have that, in no way can you put the rock outside at all. And the Europeans do, because of they do curl on so much of this kind of ice, have a little tendency to kind of get it going a little bit, starting it a bit, and so they do get more action on it. Colin didn't throw that badly, but with that little extra weight, it just sat there, ran straight down.
Linda putting the guard back?
They are. And that's one thing, Vic, excuse me for one sec, that's one thing that Colleen is usually very good at, and you have to do well today, and that is not take the same ice as your opponent. You have to totally forget what they're doing out there and not watch the curl that they get on their stone. You have to think about your curl and really cut down that broom.
Switzerland looking to steal here in this sixth.
Colleen didn't have a lot of ice for that last shot she played, I thought, because you could, as Linda mentioned, you could hit it a number of different ways. So you had to make sure that you made that double raise, you got a good portion of that top stone to push it onto the yellow.
Well, yeah, I just...
Trouble now.
You'd have to come off the red and in with it, but...
Up there.
What do I have? Do I have some of this?
You've got a hole.
Do I have how much? Oh.
Not that, the
You know
hole.
what?
Straight through the hole of the two yellows.
Yeah, I looked at
It
that
doesn't
hole.
look as good from here, guys.
Tight? Okay. You may have the out turn on the yellow bump.
Yeah, because even if you
I
nudge
think that
off the
hole's
red.
getting bigger.
Colleen?
It does look like a hole from there. It looks worse from here.
The two holes, there's one between the two yellow guards, which I agree is tiny. There's also potentially an out-turn hole to get at the rock she tried to tap
right
a
here,
moment
yeah.
ago,
Hit
Vic,
weight on
top
that.
12.
Not even hit weight, just like hack so you get the movement past the guard. And if you clip off the red, that'd be great. You know, like just the choop and in. I think
But with
hack
regular,
would be
I
good.
think you can get more action.
I think you'd have.
You like it better with regular?
On both of these holes, I'd want to throw regular, just to keep it straight through. Though, but let's go take a look at it.
Okay. This one's
Time
safer.
out.
Yeah, this one looks nicer.
So Canada will take the
one?
first
This
of
one?
their two one-minute timeouts available.
What's that?
The only thing about this hole is why I was thinking of the softer weight just to make sure you clear that, but maybe that's not a factor.
What are you looking at, though?
This hit
Coming
weight
down
here.
here. And see, then if you clip off
Clip,
there,
hopefully in there.
into the... Because that looks like a really tight hole. Are we number 2 or 3?
But that's not going to...
Let me look.
You'd have to hit
that is a
good
factor.
half of this.
Do you know what? I'd say they're only one.
Okay.
Take a look, Marianne.
Then I wouldn't disturb that guy.
Oh, it's definitely only one.
Then, yeah, then that one.
So...
Yeah.
I mean, if we could ever even get to it, shave on.
Well, but it would just play it with less weight to just kind of
Control.
tap it in, come off of this and in.
Yeah, but you need enough to get the action.
And you know what?
What did
Yeah,
we
to
make
play
that
this
down?
one.
You know what, girls?
We are number 2.
If you play it with hack skipper, that's a long guard. You could even get to directly there. I mean, whatever
doesn't
weight you
cut
But
very
Kim,
much
what
there,
good
Kim.
is that going to do? I still have to play this in off of here, right? I still have to get a bounce here. So really, and to keep it,
Okay.
it's right here with regular.
Yeah, good.
I like the regular weight scenario. I wouldn't be playing it with
That
the
looks
quiet
good.
weight. I'd take right on the edge of the stone. take where you have to hit it.
That's too tricky the other way.
Decision made, Linda?
Yes, it is. They're trying to play through this hole. They're going to catch this one and try and drive it onto that one. So the conversation was a lot about the positioning of the stones, Vic, but also the way to play and how much curl they'll get in this particular spot. Lucia's got some great stones position, and Colleen's going to have to use one of them to roll her yellow one in off that red.
And the shot stone is the Swiss stone, back 8. Colleen Jones in some trouble here.
Regular. Yep.
Final stone in the 6th. Kim Kelly, Marianne Arsenault have got to get it through the hole first, and they won't. So it's one for sure. And the Canadians thought that they were the second shot, the Yellowstone top 8, as Carmen Kung has a look. They won't. It is only one. It's a steal of 1 for the Swiss here in 6. Canada down by 2 when we come back to Gävle. Congratulations to both Canadian senior teams at this year's Ford Worlds. Cambridge's Ann Dunn was a winner over Sweden to collect the trophy, and Corner Brook, Newfoundland's Baz Buckle was a winner over the U.S. Canada wins double gold in senior play at this year's Ford Worlds. The Canadian women in the semifinal against the Swiss now trail by 2. Colleen Jones again with the hammer, playing the Yellowstones as we begin in 7.
Now, something that Colleen cannot think about, but we can talk about for a moment, Vic, is the fact that they've had a little bit of a struggle in the second half of some games in the round-robin play, giving up some late steals. And also, Colleen has to be a little careful that she doesn't stick with her trying for it style to get a deuce, where she puts up the corner on Nancy's second. At some point, depending on how this end goes, she will have to be a little more aggressive, remembering back to last year's World Final. Colleen didn't take many chances and eventually just ran out of ends when Debbie McCormick's team just played so well in the second half of that World Final.
As you look at that 6th, what went wrong for Canada, in your opinion, Ray?
Well, it really wasn't Colleen in that particular end. If you go back in that end and review it, you remember Marianne had a nice opportunity to go around a corner guard with a rock behind at the back of the forefoot, and she came up short. And Kim Kelly had a chance to come through a hole and draw to the forefoot. She also came up short. So the trouble really was created by the team, a bit as much as Colleen, and Colleen was in a little tough. I thought she threw her last rock very well, Vic. It just moved a little bit on her, and had she got through with that kind of weight, she would have spun that rock to the forefoot someplace.
Just bumping that red back.
Marianne Arsenault.
A little bit of a break with that stone out in front now.
This is short. Line.
So Vic, like the last end, a chance for Marianne to set up the end. They have to get it by top 8, top 4.
Yep. Okay. Yep.
Right over, Kim.
And they will not. Light out of her hand, they thought.
Just throwing those a little light. Yeah. So viezig als hij vast niet weg.
At the moment, according to my stats anyways, there are 3 players on the ice, Vic, in the 60% range, and they are all Canada, and that's the front 3 for Colleen. They're all under 70% now after the Fifth end break, we had to look at the numbers, and they weren't bad, but that last end certainly brought them down.
Gut, ja.
Schön grün weg.
12 Fuß ist auch okay.
Ray, are they trying to draw in, or will they guard here a little bit?
I think she's kept trying to get her around the long guard, kind of to the top 12 foot, kind of get the guard and maybe bite the rings at the same time. That was an opportunity for Marianne Wade to, you know, get a rock to the top of the 4 foot around the guard, and she came up short again. I mean, if you continue to play like that, you are not going to beat this Swiss team. They know how to play. They do play defensively, but they will give you a few chances.
Severe on the front one, though, Marianne?
I think board, Marianne.
Okay. Looks good. Yeah.
No, bang, bang. Okay, so that's there. Regular.
Regular.
Yep. Hurt. Hurt.
Arsenault in the 7th.
Nice
We'll
shot.
get them both.
That's a very nice shot, Dick. If we talk about the team, Colleen's team, last year to this year, what's the difference? Well, remember last year they only lost one game, and that was in the final. The biggest difference, in my opinion, this year is when Colleen has had the hammer, she has given up more steals. Now, part of that is we've seen a little more aggressive Colleen this year, leaving a few more stones in play. But the other thing is, with the straighter ice, as soon as the team gets a stone protected in the 4 foot, it's very difficult to get at it and get out of trouble. So far, it's that second half of the game, giving up the steals, that has been a little costly for Colleen this year.
Carmen Kung. And the shooter may just have grabbed the top edge of the 12.
But this is a big turnaround, as we saw Marianne open things up. No matter what is happening with this stone, whether it's in or out, Colleen has the chance now with 2 guards, fairly long guards, has a good chance to play a draw and get in behind cover.
Post for line. No, line's fine.
And Ray, this turn wide.
Could be through.
Well, she's not going around. She doesn't have to go through anything or go very, very wide to get this cover. And they've also seen it come a little bit. Played a couple of shots right down here. Colleen played one down here. And Switzerland played one down here for a tap back to score 2 in that 5th end. Just a little deep. We need that rock in the top of the 8 foot.
Now, Ray, the sweepers, when that was released, said that was maybe through and it stops back 8. Are you noticing much of a change in the ice condition there?
Yeah, I think, Linda, that's one of the things we talked about in reading the ice, that it does start to flatten out a little bit in the later ends, and we are moving, we're in 8 and 7, so that has happened a little bit. That's why you got to be so careful about using the watch, relying on the watch. You have to really watch them carefully with the eye.
Catch anything? Nothing. And that's a huge break now for Canada. Kim Kelly.
How's that?
It's good.
Real nice.
Got room.
Go for line.
Wall line.
Weight's good.
No line.
Weight's great.
It's not just a huge
No
break,
line.
that one,
No
because
line.
they have a shot at the back of the house. Now a chance for Kim to throw a second draw, get the field, get it to the top of the house, and really block off this spot.
No rub. Okay, she's dreaming.
Oh,
Vic, that was a great opportunity. That rock did not curl. If you get that half around that top guard in the top of the 8-foot covering the back yellow stone, boy, that was a chance to set up a big end. The rock has stayed in the open, so they have a chance now at a double.
Sweep a 4-2 to the top of the house, though, right? 4-2-4 to the tee, right? All I'm looking for is full 12 there.
Yeah. Sorry.
Just a little bit off nose to the right on the broom side, and double can be made.
Lucia Ebnöther, and the first of the skip stones in the 7th. Canada with the hammer. Roethlisberger and Fry trying to hold the line for the skipper, trying to run it just off nose, run it back, catch it, she does! Another double to get Switzerland out of some trouble here in the 7th.
It's a real strength of hers. She lines it up well, and she's able to throw that up weight to keep it straight. Brushers also brought into that shot, which is a good sign, and gets a piece of the back one.
Oh, and Carmen Kung going down all right and avoiding touching the stones.
Come on, skipper. We got this. Not a problem.
All right, Ray, they're going out in a spot in an area that we haven't seen very much of. This turn, this wide turn, what's it going to do here, do you think?
Well, I think this will come a little bit, about 2.5 to 3 feet, so you don't want to take too much ice here, and you can hold it with the brushing. We haven't played a lot out here in this particular game, but there's a little bit of movement here. That was a great opportunity that Kim Kelly had. If she just got that tucked around, not left that double, that end was setting up great for Canada. Now Colleen has to make another good come around. They just don't finish hard, so it's hard to get them buried. She took a lot of ice there, and perfect weight.
What I got on the lawn.
Well, Colleen has really seemed to have good feel for the ice today, but it just didn't bury for her. Perfect spot as far as tee line goes, but open for Lucia. And this is a little bit disconcerting when we look back over at the 2 stones belonging to Switzerland on the other side of the house. Be interesting to see if those are consideration here. But Vic, if you think about where Colleen took for draw, you see how much ice Lucia does take, just that different release, and that was what I was referring to before. Even with the big swing and the big weight, she takes a lot more ice than a Canadian player would.
Roethlisberger and Fry pick it up. They've got to get it by the stone. The guard, they do. Good brushing. And she'll sit right there on the nose, and so Colleen Jones will have to make a play. It would appear now that that one outside biter, that one at the top edge of the 12, Ray, you think that's biting? It sure looked from the overhead that it is. So this is, she's facing 2 here.
Yeah, it looks like it's into me too, Vic. I think they think it is, so she has to hit the stick here.
Maybe even close to be lying 3, Linda.
Oh, they're very close. I would say 2 for sure, a measure for 3. Colleen will try and take all of that away by playing the quiet tap for 1.
Final stone in 7. Trailing by a couple. Facing 2, maybe 3. She needs to hit and stick here. Big scrub. Kelly, Arsenault, got to get it by that one first. They do. What a great bit of sweeping by Kim Kelly and Marianne Arsenault as Canada picks up the single sitting in the 4-foot. A new episode of Law and Order Criminal Intent, Sunday at 9, 8 Central on CTV. So Canada gets 1 in the 7th. They still trail by 1. Switzerland playing the Redstones with the hammer in 8. 5-4 the Swiss leader.
Länge gut, 3. Sicher 3.
Sicher
4. Ja, Länge 4.
4.
Ja.
Achtung, lange.
4. 4. 4. Bis 5. Ja, 10 noch, Lucia.
Ja, bring ihn nicht raus. Okay?
These player comparisons are brought to you by Nokia, the official wireless phone of the season of champions.
It's a very steady Nancy Delahunt for Canada with the edge. Nadia, I think those numbers are good for Nadia, but she's had quite a few, Vic, that are a little bit deep in the house. And often you will get perfect marks for that. In this case, that one being deep does throw the advantage back to Nancy.
Flat line. Line's fine. Line's great. No, it's coming down. Right to it, you guys. Line's great.
Right to it, says Colleen Jones.
Right up.
And that's what they'll do.
Nice shot, man.
Back edge of the button in front of the Swiss Stone, sitting back 8.
Gleiche Länge wie vorhin.
Okay,
Kürzer. Bisschen kürzer. Gleich.
Warte, viel Platz.
Enger 4, enger 8. Gleich.
Hat er noch ein bisschen Görle?
Ja, gleich lang wie vorhin.
Now, she said earlier, Linda, about her
Ist
being
drauf, kommt.
heavy often,
Ist drauf.
Ist drauf.
and she's on this one.
She was a little fortunate that she got as much curl, again, back to the fact that they do get a little more curl with that release, because, Vic, that was strong for the call.
You agree with that, Ray? She got a little lucky?
Well, yeah, I do. I do, absolutely.
Marianne Arsenault.
Got some room. Got room.
Go if you can.
Whoa, no line,
Go
no
if you
line,
can.
no line. Just here. It's only top 4 I'm looking for. No bounce,
There,
no bounce.
it's just got a little bounce.
Nice shot, Marianne. Good shot, great shot.
And here we start with some of the difficulties for Canada. I talked about players, 3 of the Canadians, other than Nancy, being in the 60% range, and one of them is Marianne at 63%. So Tanya for Switzerland does have the edge. And a couple of times, Vic, when you look at the draws for Marianne, that has been a huge play, because we talk about it's not just the number, it's the timing of the miss. 2 of the come-arounds Marianne's had so far in the game that could have been in and really set up the end, ended up short and got Canada into big trouble. So that percentage for draws is showing up on the scoreboard.
Switzerland getting rid of the center line guard. Does this style of
Marianne
play...
was the number.
Go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just saying Marianne was the number 1 amongst the seconds here all week, so that was really a surprise to me to see her. And Linda's absolutely right. She had a couple of chances, but she just hasn't curled like she has all week. Sorry, Victor.
I was just going to ask you if you thought this style of play favored one team or the other, this kind of closed game now here.
Well, I mean, the way we heard the Canadian team talking during the break, and they were saying that, you know, we have been out-curled by this team, but we have to get going. They out-curled us the first part of the game, but we still have a chance to get back. And that's actually a fact because Switzerland has curled better than them, and we've had Canada has had chances, but it hasn't closed. As far as who's advantage now, I mean, I think that Colleen has no choice but to play a little more aggressive and play those quiet tap backs, and they can play that kind of game. It's their kind of game.
Now, both of these thirds are struggling. I thought this would be an interesting matchup with Kim Kelly needing to rebound after some up and downs through the week that we showed you earlier in this show.
Tight.
It is both dead even at 68%, and Kim struggling with the draws. And that is something, Vic, we have seen from a number of the players during the week as a struggle with the draw percentage, partly based on also line, not just weight. Rocks just not ending up in the right spot. In the second half of this game, as the ice gets a little tougher, as Ray has mentioned, it's going to be even more important for someone to make a key draw. It appears that there's lots of room to see that Yellowstone now, that guard over curled.
Hier. Daar siehst du ganz. Ich sehe ihn ganz.
See it all.
Ja. Stilein.
Vic, one of the things I like to mention is that these are new stones. So when I saw the percentages and draws, I was looking at the stats during the week, Linda. I just didn't disregard them. I did miss you, though. I needed you here to guide me. But one of the things when I saw the inconsistency in draw weight, I did talk to some of the more experienced curlers about the stones themselves. They're new stones with the new handles with the lights and the hogline lights. And they were saying, no, they thought the stones were pretty good. There's maybe a couple out there, but sometimes, Linda, when you do see inconsistency in draw weight, you may think a little bit that maybe there's one stone, number of stones faster than others. But the curlers, the more experienced curlers thought Paul Trolson and Per Lindholm and Neil Harrison and those guys thought the stones were pretty good.
Switzerland has called a timeout. That's their first. The Eye on the Hog, developed, of course, at the University of Saskatchewan in Saskatoon, and now used by the World Curling Federation as well as the CCA. What's the dilemma here, Linda?
I guess they're trying to decide, Vic, how much weight to make a play on that yellow one. If they do make a play in the yellow, they will open up potentially that red stone in behind. So there is a concern as to what they might leave Colleen.
Ja, aber der muss jetzt optimal tippen, dass der hinten nicht geht.
Ja, dann kann sie einfach auf ihren Vorder spielen.
Ja, und jetzt an mir auch. Dann geht ihr auch und wir können uns auch.
Ja, dann spielen wir nochmal so wie ich anzeigen kann.
Nein,
ich will nochmal auftun zuerst mal.
Aber ich sehe ihn jetzt besser denn nie.
Mark Brugger is the coach of the Swiss team out of Bern.
Da haben wir ja immer noch wie besprochen.
Du siehst ihn mehr als ganz.
Ja.
Ich sehe ihn mehr als ganz.
Just a reminder, we're back with you bright and early Saturday morning, 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time for the men's semi-final from the Ford Worlds. It'll be Mark Dacey, who was perfect through round robin as he goes against Germany, and 27-year-old Sebastian Stock, a former all-star at the World Junior level a number of years ago. And in fact, he won the European title back in 2002 when he beat Sweden with Per Lindholm. So it's Stock, Germany against Canada, and Mark Dacey tomorrow morning, bright and early here on TSN.
What have they decided, Victor?
Linda?
Yeah, pass the buck. We're going to guess a bit, Ray, with the broom placement. It looks like they're playing it with peeling off the front one.
Carmen Kung. That's right, Linda.
Thanks, everybody, for your help.
And back up goes the guard, or so Colleen Jones hopes.
It's a very interesting point of the game because Switzerland does have a little bit of control now, both on the board and with the hammer. And that's why, Vic, I think they're not taking any chances. I mentioned the option of making a play to sit 2 on their last stone, but Switzerland knows that if they leave Canada out, a way to try and get a stone nestled in there, they may have no chance this end. So you can see it's a very low-risk kind of plan that Lucia is using here.
Guard may have come over just a little bit more, opened up that yellow stone a touch, but looks, so they're going to go after the guard again, Ray?
Well, it's kind of interesting. You're right. It did curl a little bit more, and now it's kind of enticing. You know, it's enticing you to play the back one, and, and with the ice running so straight, you know, I think they're going to peel it off, though, Vic. As a matter of fact, in my translation, I think that they said they were going to.
Oh, they just, good brushing held that enough. They're in danger of leaving that shooter there.
And there's the third player for Canada in that 60% range. I mentioned only Nancy Delahunt up in her usual 90% range. It is Lucia Ebnöther with the edge. Colleen has made some very nice draws, but in fairness to Colleen, in the last couple of ends, she hasn't had a great opportunity to get in for the score. Just really interesting to see Lucia. She's a relatively easy player to scout, Vic, and I'm not saying she's not a good player, but generally speaking, her hitting game is so much stronger than her draw game.
Yeah, I don't want the guard to go too far over to that.
And you can hear Colleen Ray talk just about where they want that guard. Although, you go back to what you talked about teasing them. Would you like them to make a play at the shot stone in the 4-foot?
I think you'd like to, but they haven't in the 2 previous stones, so I don't think that you're going to entice them into it here. But you heard her say in the hack, we want to make sure we leave the intern side open. So.
Well, no chance of making a play at it now. That's almost perfect.
Good shot.
Nee, was machen wir? Also wenn sie vorne...
Wat daar willen?
Dus wenn sie vorne aufmachen...
Voor de kou.
Dan probeert sie nachher daar.
Wie viel siehst du von dem?
What do you see of that?
Schau schnell.
Was niet?
Nothing.
Ja.
Ja.
Oh, also, aber dann was macht sie?
Nee.
Dus wenn wir zumachen.
The reason they were asking about that, Vic, is there a chance for Colleen to use that, come on this side and drive it over onto this one? And if there's not, then they're talking about playing the other turn, either coming to the top 4 or even just somewhere in the top of the house.
Switzerland is lying 1 on the button. They have the lead, and they have the hammer here in 8. Coming right in, Ray, right on top.
I would if I was her, because the other outside shot is a possibility, the one Linda talked about. On the, she did talk about coming right to the face of it.
Hoe lang hier? Ga richtig! Ga richtig! Ga richtig! 4 voet! Ga richtig! 8 voet! Warte! 8 voet!
Roethlisberger, Fry, look at the movement here. And they can't get it by. Where did that come from, Ray?
Well, that goes back to what Linda was saying, is how they release, and she does get all kinds of action on her interns, especially because the rock is pulling her out of the hack like that a little bit, and when she releases the stone and putting the turn on, she gets it going a bit, And we've seen it all day today. They're getting some action on their stones with those releases that the Canadians have not been getting.
Now, was that a break also for Switzerland when you consider the little rub and where that shooter ended up?
I think it is. I think they could have really left a good position for Colleen and rubbed it over to make it tough.
It's a hole, but just.
Oh, my. You think you can come through that hole, Ray?
It is risky because when that does it too.
I couldn't personally get through it, but you could, Victor. You're a little lighter than I.
Yeah.
Now, Ray, we haven't seen many run backs. Is that the kind of shot you can trust with this ice?
Here, does it? Go take a look.
More so than waiting for that break, Linda. You know how for it to curl. We saw some great curling here, from both men and women earlier with run backs. I agree that's a good call on your part. I mean, I think that you could be a little more secure in your ice read on the run back.
Certainly easier than it is right now. Oh, that's a very skinny hole.
Yeah, it is. There's only room for this. And the rock is wider than that. So I would
Well,
say no.
it's this much on this side, right? And then that much. So it is a hole, but the
I
thing
think it's
is,
awful risky.
you'd hate to get through there and then just clip the yellow one.
You can't do that.
You
can't come through and clip the yellow one on the out turn.
Oh.
Linda, have they even looked at your idea of coming down and angling back that yellow stone on the edge of the forefoot?
Well, the difficulty, Vic, I was just talking about run backs in general. The difficulty of doing it now, so late in this end, is you have to now protect against giving up more than one.
Oh, it's just coming back on this, Kim.
What if you got to that nose of that? Would be enough to move that out of the way? Like
Well,
to
I
get
can't
that
get
shot?
to no, there's no way.
What about Linda coming off
But, I mean, I don't mind
the one
trying to
against
kiss
the
it over
wall?
a little bit. That is
Can you
it's
do
not
any
gonna
harm
give you a
there?
shot. I mean, what's the
No, you
best way to
couldn't
stop
do
it?
much harm,
Here's your
Ray.
finger. Absolutely. And they've got the in-turn draw, right? That's all they've got.
You know what? The only way is to hit it hard. Can you see it?
I can't see any of it, Kim.
Okay. 'Cause
I've got
that's
nothing.
the only way to bring that back and get that off there.
What do you like, Marnie?
So, Vic, here you have to decide, are you going to try and block the shot for a second point for Switzerland, or try a very difficult shot, but a way maybe to take away the end completely?
And I think she looked at slicing that stone over and said she can't see much of it or anything at all, actually.
Because we can just mess
Which
it up
turn?
and do it the other way.
Yeah.
We don't have to make some kind of impossible shot just yet.
All right, Ray, what's the decision here?
Just playing a guard, I believe, Vic. Try and
She's-
prevent the deuce.
Yeah, she's taken that option. She's not even trying to draw into the top 12, Vic. She's playing the out turn to get a guard into a position and make Lucia then consider what she can do, again, with a very difficult situation to get a second stone into the button.
Hair last, Nance. Whoa.
Colleen Jones and her final stone here in this eighth. Looking to hold Switzerland to a single.
Is that right for your broom?
It's a little heavier than that, isn't it? Yep, come on, yep. Yep, keep it coming. Wait till it stops. Whoa! Whoa! Okay.
Am I swinging way over there? Trying to get it to go over there.
That has the opposite effect, though.
How was it?
Now, from what you've said, Ray, and from what we've seen, there's no chance, is there, with this ice, that you can put the brush down on the edge of the 8-foot and hope it's going to curl over and grab enough for shot rock, is it?
Well, I think the way she releases it, yeah, I think that she gets a lot of action out of her release, and you know, she just needs to catch the full forefoot. She doesn't need to get to the button even. She has to be full in the forefoot, because both the other Yellowstones are biting the back of the top of the 8-foot. The top one is in. She just needs to get full forefoot. Wow. I mean, it would be a very, very good shot and a tough one because It doesn't curl much, but...
Well, here we go. Final stone, line one. Not enough weight. Save them for later. Switzerland will get their single in 8. Switzerland regains their 2-point lead. Canada will have the hammer back and try to come back in this women's semi. TSN's coverage of the World Hockey Championships begins on Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 Pacific. They are being held in Prague in the Czech Republic, and the Canadians lost to the Czech Republic yesterday in their final tune-up. They'll open against Austria on Sunday, 2 Eastern Time. The World Hockey Championships are on TSN. So we go to the 9th, and Switzerland has the lead up by 2. Their first stone comes back edge of the 4. The corner goes up by Canada. And this is the second lead stone for the Swiss lead, Nadia Roethlisberger. Ray, it's true what you said, though, and about Canada's play this week. They've had their chances in this game. They've just failed to set it up properly, haven't they?
Yeah, they've had golden opportunities. There was one just 2 ends ago where Kim Kelly, she had the perfect weight. The rock just didn't curl, whether it was too much ice or not, or it just ran straighter and set up a double. She makes a come around on that particular shot into the top of the 8-foot, but there's been a number of times like that. I kind of disagree with even the way Colleen played the first couple of ends. It's easy to criticize or you know, in this situation, but I would have, having advantage of last rock, I would have been throwing up corner guards earlier. She did this time. But as we saw even last year, it's now the 9th end, you're 2 down, and you got to get your deuce here to try and tie this thing up if you can.
Line's great.
Back 8.
Yep, then, yep. I'll make sure it gets to back 8. Great shot, Nan. Great shot.
The tap moves the stone to the back of the 8-foot. It is still Switzerland lying 2 without.
So this is now Lucia reading the scoreboard, seeing the edge that she has and trying to paint a picture, Vic, of what she wants to be playing the 10th end. And so she's going to play this as open as possible now, just going after the front stone.
Tanya Fry, the chocolate maker. She's a chocolatier by profession. You like coming into the house now, Ray, as she's indicating?
Yeah, she's freezing to the back one. Nothing wrong with the shot.
Weight's perfect. Needs a little. Okay, then go. Yep.
The nice thing, Vic, about that Canadian stone tapping the red rock to the back of the house is now there's several jam possibilities based on where this rock goes.
It's short. Let's just leave it then. Yeah.
And Kim is going to come up light outside the rings.
Lasse?
Lasse?
Ja? Hey? De wasmachine. Dan gaan we er over.
That was interesting because you heard the front end say he wanted on the nose. A nose would run it right back into the Swiss stone. And now they're looking at maybe trying to avoid the jam.
That would be my same thought process, Vic, is playing it on the center line side and trying to drive it by the stone at the back of the house.
Yep.
Vicklin, I have to believe that Marianne has a slow stone. I really do. She's about 4 or 5 times. She has come up not just an inch or 2 light, Linda. I mean, light, like 4 or 5, 6, 7, 8 feet. It's just not like her.
Avoid the jam? They do, and the shooter will roll in. I guess, Ray, the only other thought is, if you run that stone right back, if you're the Swiss stone, you get a rock out of the back of the 8 foot. Would that be the Swiss thought on that, if you're going to run it straight back?
I think they could have done it that way too, though, Vic. They could have played that same way they just did, not try for quite as much roll, which would have been a better shot. They would have ended up protecting the one at the back of the 4 foot and maybe getting rid of the other stone as well. That one rolled far enough now that Canada has room to come in.
Good shot.
Top 8.
Ja, maar zo brengen we er niet weg. Dus zeker daar weg, hè. Möglichst gerade. Aber sonst sicher raus, hè. Was der geht.
Okay.
Whatever they do here, she's saying you got to get rid of that top one.
Yeah.
Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, she's also worried about the angles, Vic. As you can see, whichever way you play this, you have to make sure that you don't drive that one in the house onto something behind it. So we talked about how straight to hit the first one.
Okay, goed zo.
So the jam means they get rid of one stone. A potential user for Canada at the back of the 8.
Yep.
Switzerland still lying 1, back edge of the 4 foot without the hammer here in the 9.
Last falling, I don't think it'll come over that much with the tag.
Little input from Kim there. That's one thing we were saying, that Colleen's usually very good at reading ice, but maybe on a few of her shots has taken a bit too much ice. So Kim asking for a little less, and Colleen certainly obliging.
What's the weight? T. Whoa. Mine's getting better. Whoa.
No, not yet. Not yet.
Yep. Hurry, hurry, hurry.
Little tap.
Great shot, Kim.
Very nice. T-line, edge of the button, Canada lies 1.
Too bad we had to wait for it.
You notice that, Ray, as well, that Colleen is just a little unsure about the ice reading? We're having a problem with Ray's microphone from Gävle.
That's a big mistake.
That's a huge break for the Canadians, because suddenly they are now lying 2.
But Vic, the way she played it really interested me. I think you had to just play off the front one, and Nutzlia did line up the double, which is when you can get into a bit of trouble. Remember, she started the end just trying to keep it clean and maybe give up 2, no more coming home.
Did they see your time, Colin?
I did throw time.
So the Canadians have called their second timeout. They realize this is a potentially, maybe, game-winning end for them.
On either side is that you're giving them the hit and roll in front
Right
of
now,
one of these
that
two.
is inaccessible, it would
That's
appear.
right.
So I wonder if we should, I guess, what if we just come around this,
Yeah,
right
I mean, it's not
here,
a bad shot.
right
But
there.
The problem
like
with,
that.
I like the shot. The problem is,
Well, we have to.
I know it's not a friendly house, because no matter where we go,
And the other thing is,
Friendlier
it's tough
than it
with the
was.
double
it
here.
is a lot friendlier.
Sit there too.
I don't know if we, yeah, see, I don't mind removing this rock, but
No, I don't want to remove it. I'll tell you, there's a part of me, given how that out turns, which is on the in-turn
In-turn.
side, or which
Yeah, the
way?
out
Did she
turn
say?
looks
Well, whatever goes better. I think the intern comes a bit better, Colleen.
like, you know what, Colin, even if I show them half a rock right here, that's nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
will come, Kimmy.
Three's still alive.
Can I give you a 4-2 or a 4?
Just a 4. Just a 4, yeah.
All right.
The one Yellowstone is wide open. Kim is trying to put a rock into a top 8 foot, and then if Switzerland Vic goes after that wide open one, Canada still has 2 stones set up in a very good spot.
You gotta go. Yep. Yep. Hard line. Hard line.
While it sets up well for you here, if you're Canada, you still have to be patient.
Well, you can't really worry about the red stones very much.
Oh.
A little too deep, though.
And back 8 it goes. But the brushing, of course, to get it by the Swiss stone top 12.
That is one spot that does seem to be a little bit of curl, Vic, where it wants to go once it gets closer to center. And so you're right, they swept it to get it by, and that brought it back, and that means a hit and roll on the open one can really be a good shot now for Switzerland. They don't have that other Yellowstone bothering them at the top of the house.
So Lucia Ebnöther and the Swiss have a chance here to regain control of the end. They had it in a steal situation, but then Carmen Kung's mistake handed it back to the Canadians here in the 9th.
Now this is a huge shot. If we talk about big shots and the ability to handle the pressure, as we know Colleen can late in the game, this is now up to Lucia, who's been close in many past events, wants so badly to be there in the finals, and this is one of those shots that can really take you there, Vic.
Right out of her hand, Roethlisberger and Fry pick her up. First stone for the Swiss skip. Looking for the hit and the roll. There's the hit and the roll much too far. But it did push that Canadian stone back far enough. Canada, for the moment, appear to be lying just 1.
That was a great call by Carmen, the 3rd for Switzerland, Vic, to try and get that little double. Didn't move it out, but moved it a little bit, and it does appear that the Swiss stone is second shot.
I think it looks red, clearly.
Well, we're still doing here.
Exactly.
But for Lucia, it was quite a miss. She missed the target area, Vic, by quite a bit, and it was a good chance to get a hit and roll and really take the end away from Colleen. Colleen still has a good chance to draw into the house.
Should I ask where you went to, Ray?
Looks like she moved it enough.
Yeah, there was a little smorgasbord just over in the corner. I thought I'd go have something to eat.
Good for you. Welcome back.
Did you take a little more than me? Yeah.
At end turned around on the mistake by Carmen Kung.
Yeah, it sure did. It's and Kim had a chance. I think that maybe needed a little more ice for Kim's come around. It was a little heavy. They had to brush it to get it by. But
She actually
an opportunity here.
Yeah, she actually asked for less ice before she threw it. This is the first stone for Colleen Jones. Canada lying 1 with the hammer.
Where?
Back.
Whoa, then.
T anyway.
Whoa.
Watch the curl.
Wait, line's fine, guys.
Whoa, line.
You got room. Line's perfect.
Okay,
Not
we're
behind
there.
the tee, though, Marianne,
We're there.
if you can.
Whoa.
Even with that guy, maybe?
Great shot, Colleen. Great shot.
Something to think about.
Yeah, that's right.
Gives her something to think about. What's she thinking about, Lucia Ebnöther, Linda?
Well, Vic, I guess how much weight to play, what kind of shot to play. It looks like to me you would just try to draw to the face of it.
Yeah, she just said that too, Ray. You got nothing else. We're going to play the freeze down to it. Do you agree?
Yeah, that would have been a great shot if it had just stopped in the middle of the 8-foot second shot, a corner behind that red that's on the center line. Unfortunately, it slipped too far, so it does give the Swiss skip a chance to sit on top of it. Hard to get those out, as we know.
Colleen Jones, Nancy Delahunt, they find themselves in some trouble here as they play in the ninth. They have the hammer, but Canada trails by 2 in this semifinal. The winner on to the gold medal game to play either the United States or Norway. They'll play their semifinal later today in Gävle, Sweden.
She was heavy earlier in the game trying to play one of these shots.
And she got a break, remember? Uh-oh. A little rub. Oh, here it is. Do the Canadians have a chance here, Linda, to possibly score a 3?
Well, they sure do. That one didn't curl very much for her. Just a little bit too strong.
All about the chances, Ray, we talked about earlier, and making the most of them. And here is one of those opportunities for Colleen Jones.
Well, Colleen hasn't herself curled as bad as Linda mentioned. Hasn't had a lot of chances, and when she has had chances, she's taken advantage of them herself. The team really struggled in the middle, but here is the golden opportunity to hit this on the nose, score 3 points, and take a 1-up lead going home.
A big mistake by Carmen earlier in the end. Sia had chances to get out of trouble, Vic, but now a chance for 3 for Colleen.
Control. Yeah. Whoa. Whoa. Yeah. Whoa. Whoa. Just clean. Just clean.
Just clean it, says Nancy Delahunt. For 3, and it is. They're going to measure for the 4th, but from this angle, it certainly looks like it is the red stone, which would be Switzerland. But a 3 will give the Canadians the lead through 9. Ray, she threw this well?
She did. You know, that's the one thing over the years, when you give Colleen the chances, she herself usually takes advantage of them, and you just didn't expect her ever to miss that, and she didn't, of course. She threw it very, very well.
The umpire from Scotland.
I don't know.
To the Swiss stone first.
Yeah.
3 for sure. Will it be a 4th for Canada? Right. No, it will not. It is the Swiss closer. So Colleen Jones, the Canadians pick up their 3. They have the lead, 7-6, as we go to the 10th in the women's semifinal of the Ford Worlds. Well, Mark Dacey has been the best all week, perfect. And so he'll play his semifinal against Germany. Sebastian Stock finishing 4th. They're out of Oberstdorf. Stock, a former consistent player in the World Juniors for Germany, won the European title, beating Sweden a couple of years ago. And Ray, they're coached by Uli Suter. You may remember Uli from 1986. He played for Germany. That was the first World Championship. You and I worked, that was at the Coliseum in Toronto. You remember Uli?
I remember him clearly, Vic, now that you've brought it up.
It's tough enough to remember yesterday.
I'm going back to the smorgasbord.
Yeah. As we welcome you back, we go to the 10th. A 3-spot for the Canadians have them in front. But Linda, you were quick to check the notes, and this is a similar situation to earlier in round robin.
Well, the only one that seems to match up, Vic, is the second game in round robin play where Canada played Denmark, and they did. Canada get 3 and 9 to go 1 up without, and Denmark got 3 coming home. We know that with rocks in play, anything's possible, and now we see guards out in front as Switzerland now tries to make a play on the one in the house.
Oh, oh! Yeah! Oh, yeah, yeah! Read!
Through the hole. And a little roll behind the corner. Very nice shot by the Swiss lead Natalia Roethlisberger. As we take a look at the Canadians and in particular, Linda, their worrisome start.
It was that second game I just referred to against Denmark where they lost after being 1 up, coming home without. The only time during round robin play that happened. But you're right, Vic, 2 losses that early, you worry. They rattled off a good string, losing to Scotland with some late steals for Jackie Lockhart.
And that put Canada into a must-win situation against Finland. Had they lost, they would have dropped into that big pile of tiebreakers.
All right, you got some room still. Line's good. No bounce, you guys. Hard. That's a good shot.
Marianne Arsenault with the draw to the top of the 8 as we look at the Swiss. And after that loss to Canada, came back with a couple of wins.
And look at loss to other playoff contenders, Scotland, and of course the first place team, Norway. But Lucia is always a consistent player, gets enough wins, gets into the playoffs. The big question is how she does in the playoffs. Can she win the big game? And she has to put together a big end right now.
And for her, yesterday, the crucial game was that win over Sweden and Annette Norberg to avoid a tiebreaker. The Swiss second is Tanja Frey. And not going to get through this time.
I think they were playing that, Vic. I think they were peeling that guard the whole time.
Ray, do you agree with that? Were they playing that peel?
They were definitely peeling it. She's absolutely correct. Yeah, Marianne was up light again. It was a nice shot. It ended up in front of the stone, which is a nice spot. But that once again, she was light and just a little light. But I mean, I really believe she may have a slow stone out there. I honestly believe it.
Regular. Yep. Yep.
A lot of this one is picked up right away. Trying to hold the line. Got it by. Avoid the jam. They do. Look at that. Beauty. The angle raised to lie 2. So Canada plays Switzerland with the winner going through to the gold medal game against the winner of the later semifinal, Norway. Dorthe Nordby, a 2-time world champion, playing as if it was 1990 and 91 all over again. And she goes against the U.S. and Patty Lank and her team out of Lewiston, New York.
If we just go back in this end, Vic, I guess my surprise on the peel shot is it's a team, Switzerland needing 2, and clearly Lucia isn't going to take any chances. She's going to make sure she has a shot for 1 and potentially go for a steal in the extra end if she has to, because the option instead of clearing that guard is to use it yourself. And yes, Canada had a stone that they could have tapped up, but you need to take a few chances if you want to set up your deuce. If you're happy to just make sure you get 1 for sure, then the clearing shot is the one you call.
Regular.
Kim Kelly.
Curl a little bit more. Okay, take it right over then. All right, stay there.
Nice shot, Kim.
Kim sits right on the fence, doesn't she? Just right there. Well, take it over. No, well, that's all right. Stay right there then.
Well, no, she was actually, in my opinion, she was right there, you know, Vic, because if you don't want to leave it so close to that long corner guard so that they get a roll, the only thing that'll change this end around right now is the fact that if she gets a really nice roll behind that corner guard, I would have maybe had a tendency to let it go over further. If they make the double, so what, you know? I'm sure Colleen would be happy with an extra end here.
Now, the other thing, Linda, further to what you were saying about Switzerland not taking any chances here, you go back to what your thought was to start and the lack of conversion with the hammer. They were able to get a couple of deuces in 3 and 5 with the hammer, so they were able to do it. It makes you even question more why they're not being a little more aggressive here.
Well, what happens often in the latter part of the game, Vic, is just the pressure, the situation, as opposed to the Roxum play. And I think that is one thing that Lucia is concerned about. She wants to make sure she has a chance for the tie. And sometimes when you do that, you're a little too cautious, Vic, and you don't get anything set up.
Would that be the reason, though, maybe, Linda, over the years that she hasn't been able to finish and get the wins because she is a good team, that maybe at the later stages of the game she doesn't take some of the chances that you need to take to actually finish the game off and win?
I think so, Ray, and I think it comes back to a point you and I make frequently during our Canadian championships, and that is you have to take those chances, and sometimes you have to lose in order to gain the confidence to put rocks in play and next time make it work. Now, there's a nice shot to move some things around, but unfortunately, the redstone goes as well.
It's just past noon Eastern time, 5 past noon in the east, and for you, I guess what? Just past 6 o'clock in the evening in Gävle?
Yeah, it's just 10 after 6. That's why we did go and have a little bite to eat a few ends ago.
Well, it's got the freeze for the back one. Yeah, I don't mind this at all.
Okay. We're in.
This is one shot you don't want to slip deep. Now, you got to keep this in a position so that corner guard does not work against you.
Still.
Whoa,
Mine's fine. Where?
Whoa,
Deep.
heavy.
Way back.
Deep is not what you want to hear.
No.
Slow down, baby.
Now, one thing we noticed, Ray, is they put the corner guard on that side, which is the in-turn side for the right-hander. I wonder if they did that on purpose. We know that Colleen's good with both turns, but really loves that out-turn.
Wow, look at how that ground to a halt.
Chance for a roll, Vic. Tap back and roll.
Wet.
14.
Ja.
Door bis er noch rüberkommt.
14.
14. Ja.
Katze.
Hä?
Katze.
14 is an indication of their weight. Is that?
Yeah, they do use different times, Vic, but they're going to take a timeout because they seemed uncertain as to which they were actually going to play.
You mentioned it earlier, Linda, and I talked about it in the Reading the Ice, that in the later ends, it does flatten out a little bit in the slide path, and that one definitely did fudge a little, as we say at home, but just because she looked like she threw that heavy, and their watches obviously told them that. That's why they jumped up quickly and didn't go anywhere near it. And that's the other thing that we were saying is, you can't, in this kind of ice surface, sometimes you just cannot believe the watch.
Ja, ik zie hem gaan. Ze nemen er tussen. Also die Frage ist einfach, machen wir es 14 in Hüftenrohr oder machen wir einen Tapback, die da noch vorschlagen?
Wobei Tapback, da können wir nicht verstecken, oder? Dann können wir lieber 14, dann brauchen wir jetzt unsere schönen Karten.
Ja, siehst du gut aus?
Well, the coach just mentioned that's what they'd like to do, Linda, you know, if they can make the quiet tap back and then hide one, as he said, and tuck it behind the guard.
14, schön Mickey, hinteren Punkt, ja.
And I don't think there's any question as to which shot, Vic. I think it's just a question of the weight they're going to play.
14 kommt, dann ist gut. Können wir hinteren? 14 wirklich hinteren, oder? Ja. Gut so. Ist gut, dann sind sie unter Druck, viel mehr.
Also, machen wir hübsches 14.
Tschüss.
Okay, so the 14 is their weight decision, and the coach agrees that that's the weight it'll come and get across the nose, and they'll get the roll as well with it. An opportunity here for Switzerland. They trail by 1. A hit and roll might set up the possibility of a deuce. Need to get across the nose if he wants the little roll behind the guard.
Okay.
And right on the nose. You know, Ray, we see it so often, and you wonder if she could have maybe played that with a little less weight, controlled the stone a little bit more, you know, still gotten the tap back, but the roll. If do you think she played a little too much weight at that?
Well, you're right. She could have played less weight, Vic, and just try to tap it back, and then you do have a little more control with the brushes. But you didn't have to roll very far because the ice is so straight. Even if you got it half covered, all of a sudden it became a very difficult shot. In this case, of course, all Colleen would like to do is get this rock out of there without jamming it, and force Switzerland to make the draw for the tie and get yourself into an extra end with the hammer.
Regular?
Whoa. Yep. Whoa. 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 Yeah. Yeah.
Final stone for Colleen Jones and the Canadians. Don't jam it. And they don't. And they also get the roll.
That's a very good shot, Linda.
Wow, that rock is pretty buried, and you could see that Lucia was hesitant at first to play a draw. She wanted to play some sort of tap, Vic, and maybe a little chip and roll on this shot stone, but that rock is too covered to make a play.
So it comes down to drawing the 4-foot to force an extra. What a great shot by Colleen Jones.
She's had 9 draws, and she's at 44%, so obviously a great roll by Colleen Jones to force her to draw to the 4-foot to get the extra end. It was a great throw by Colleen.
It's not her strength. It's a time of the game when we've already said it's very tricky for the thrower and the brushers to find the weight, and she needs 4-foot.
Lucia Ebnöther trying to get Switzerland into an extra end against Canada. The call for help has gone out. Here comes Carmen Kung to join Roethlisberger and Fry. Got to get it to the 4-foot. 4-foot for an extra. A little bit more. 4-foot. She won't get there. And the Canadians will advance to the final as they'll steal one here in 10. So Colleen Jones and the Canadians will advance to the gold medal game, and now we'll wait to see whether they'll play Patty Lank of the U.S. or Dorney Nordby of Norway, who will meet later today in the second semifinal. Colleen Jones and the Canadians score 3 in the 9th to take the lead, and then Jones with a terrific hit and roll, forcing Ebnöther to make a draw to the 4-foot. She couldn't do it, and the Canadians will go for gold again.
The 2004 Ford World Curling Championships from Sweden are brought to you by Karcher. You'll look for things to clean. By Nokia, official wireless phone of the Season of Champions. And by Ford, built for life in Canada.
Canada celebrates a win in the women's semifinal of the Ford Worlds in Gävle, Sweden. Welcome back, Canada, to our curling control. Linda Moore alongside. Ray Turnbull is in Gävle. 8-6 the final, but it was a game that really the Canadians had no control of, Linda. When you look back, the Swiss had the lead through the midway point through 5. Then they stole 1 in 6 to take a 2-point lead, and it seesawed back and forth until the 9th.
You know, it was one of those games where it was cautious for a while. There was some good chances for a while. The difficult part for Switzerland is they made a flip in their plan, and I think they became a little too cautious at the wrong moments.
Okay, let's take a look at the crucial 9th, and it was the shot of Colleen Jones, who really at this point you had said struggled, was in the 60% range throughout the game, but here makes a great shot to get the 3.
She makes a really good shot. This is when I think Switzerland maybe made some mistakes on setting up the last few shots. Vic, it was one of those where they had some rocks in position and could have made some certain plays. That's actually the 10th end shot, the great hit and roll. So it was the 9th end we were talking about where Colleen made some good shots. But in my opinion, Lucia Ebnöther never made that one big one. She had a chance in 9, Lucia, to take the end away, to make a freeze. She never could quite get those draws in position.
So Ebnöther, that's the hit and roll. And Ebnöther then missed her shot. And of course, it resulted in the steal and an 8-6 win. So the Canadians will now advance to the gold medal game. And they will now await to see whether they play Dorothy Nordby, a 2-time world champion, or they'll play the U.S. and Patty Lank. It's the Ford Worlds on TSN. We'll have coverage of the men's semifinal from the Ford Worlds in Gävle coming up Saturday morning, 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time. That's 4:30 in the morning Pacific. Mark Dacey, perfect through round robin, will play Germany and Sebastian Stock out of Oberstdorf. So we've already seen one of the Mayflower teams, Colleen Jones, advance to the final. Earlier, Ray was talking with Mark and asked him about his first experience at the Worlds, and he said, like most who go to Europe, you have to adjust, first of all, to the size of the arenas. It's not like being at home. There aren't the kind of crowds. And then, of course, the ice. But with a 9-0 record in round robin, Mark seems to have adjusted pretty well.
Yeah, you'd say that he's done very good job with that sort of thing. You know, it's interesting because Mark is inexperienced. When you look at he's playing Germany, Germany has lots of World Junior experience, European experience, so that international flavor is to their advantage. But what Mark has is Brier experience, and that is a lot of pressure no matter what you're talking about as far as opponents. That's a ton of pressure, and we've seen him do so well.
Colleen Jones, a winner, 8-6 over Switzerland, and Colleen is with Ray.
Colleen, first of all, congratulations on a wonderful win. That's one of those games that, a bullet.
Well, you know what? It was one of those games, I think, that was sometimes our trademark, and that was never give up. You know, I thought Switzerland played a terrific game. I thought the skip was on fire, and we just kept plugging away and got the big score in the 9th end, and then we were really thinking just extra end in the 10th, but then for her to come up a little short, she had a tough draw. You know, it's hard to hit the 4-foot in the 10th end when you know it's getting into a world final, so, or at least forcing the extra end. So.
And that's one of the things that does happen in the later ends, that the slide path does fudge a little bit. Do you think Marianne may have had a slower rock?
In hindsight, I would think. She was light a lot, and however, the draw weight was a little tougher this game than what it was. It was a little bit heavier, but she might have had a slower rock. I don't know. I'd recommend her taking those again.
You had lots of chances in the game, though, Colleen, and you finally put it to work.
we did have chances, and we didn't capitalize in the 6th and 7th, and I just thought it was, you know, one of those kind of frustrating ends, those middle ends for us where, you know, Switzerland took full control, and, you know, I'm just thankful that they missed when they did in the 9th end, and, you know, still you got to make that nose hit for 3 in the 9th, and you're thinking, don't blow this, it's your only opportunity so far in the game to kind of get going and get moving, and so, and then in the 10th it was just, you know, well executed. I thought we finished strong. I was really proud of the way the girls didn't quit.
And you made a great shot with your last one. Good luck in your final.
Thank you very much. Glad to be in the final. We're finishing it off this year.
Good girl.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's the thing, and she realizes and knows the reputation that she's only won the single world championship. Do you look now at the 2 remaining teams on the other side of the bracket and worry or think about whom you would like to play? Or are you more concerned in that being Norway or the U.S.? Or are you more concerned about the way your team played? Yes, they failed to capitalize today. They made a couple of key shots, took advantage of the Swiss mistakes. So what's more important to you, your own team or the team you may face?
Well, the nice thing for Canada is they have some other coaches and other people there, Vic. So you have 2 different groups. You have the team that have to concentrate on their game. Talk a little bit about the ice and stones that they struggled with today. Talk about the game plan that they're going to play. And then you have some coaches that'll go watch that other semifinal, scout the opponents, try to pick out some weaknesses. But you do know whoever they play, they're going to play well.
But would you think that it would be easier or more conducive to the Canadian game if they played Patty Lank rather than Doherty Norby, who we have seen has been all over the sheet when it comes to strategy?
Well, I guess if we talk about past the semifinal, because Doherty Norby has to concentrate on her game, but she would be the one of the 2 that would look at the game against Canada and say, wow, this is my great chance. I love to play Canada. I would love a chance to play Colleen Jones. We know Doherty has been successful in the past against Colleen.
Yeah, it's been a long time, and as we say, she seems to be revitalized this year, playing like people are saying like she played when she won back-to-back in 90 and 91. Of course, the Americans, Patty Lank, are looking to duplicate and win back-to-back championships. Debbie McCormick did it a year ago. Jackie Lockhart, she was into the tiebreaker, but then lost this morning to Patty Lank. Colleen Jones, her only championship coming in 2001. And then you look back to the great teams of Elizabeth Gustafsson, who won the championship 4 times. So Canada puts themselves in position to win their first championship since 2000. And Kelly Law, Colleen Jones is through to the gold medal game. Here are the final 4 on the men's side of the Ford Worlds. Canada will play Germany. We'll have that for you on Saturday morning. The other one is Peter Lindholm, Sweden, against Paul Trulson, Norway. What a great semi that will be, as Norway finished in 2nd place behind the Canadians. Mark Dacey going through undefeated. So be sure to join us on Saturday morning at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time when we have the men's semi for you. It'll be Mark Dacey against Sebastian Stock, the men's semi from the Ford Worlds. So Canada's Colleen Jones is through to the final. And on behalf of all of us, to Colleen, to Kim Kelly, Marianne Arsenault, Nancy Delahunt, congratulations on a wonderful year. We wish you the best of luck in the gold medal game. And until Saturday morning, thanks for joining us. The Ford